The year I turned 27, my life developed a personal vendetta. It started with my phone buzzing itself off the milk crate I used as a nightstand at 5:42 in the morning. The screen hit the floor with a crack that sounded expensive. I stared at the ceiling. The ceiling stared back with a water stain shaped vaguely like the state of Oregon, giving me the middle finger. Beautiful, I muttered. The phone kept buzzing. I rolled off the mattress, grabbed it, and squinted through the spiderweb crack. Rent due, final notice. Under that was a text from my landlord. Anna, I need payment by Friday. I've been patient. Patient. That was one word for calling me every other day like we were in a toxic relationship. Below that, my bank app had sent a notification I did not ask for. Balance, minus $38.12. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't laugh, I was going to start screaming, and my upstairs neighbor already thought I was unstable because I had once threatened his Bluetooth speaker with a hammer. I sat there in the gray Portland morning, one hand wrapped around my phone, rain ticking against the window like impatient fingernails. My apartment smelled like burnt coffee, wet socks, and the lavender candle I kept relighting because grief apparently did not care about ambiance. On my dresser, beside a stack of unpaid bills, sat a funeral program folded neatly in half. Maya Ellis, beloved daughter, friend, fighter. I turned it face down. Then I felt like an asshole, and turned it back over. Maya would have hated that photo. She had told her sister at least 4 times not to use anything from the cancer wig era, as she called it. She'd said if anybody put a soft focus picture of her looking brave on a pamphlet, she would haunt us all. They used one anyway. So far, no haunting. Typical Maya. Late, even as a ghost. My throat tightened before I could stop it. I stood too fast, nearly tripped over a laundry basket, and decided feelings could go fuck themselves until after my shift. By 6:30, I was behind the counter at Bitter Saint Coffee, steaming oat milk for people who thought tipping $1 made them philanthropists. A man in a navy raincoat leaned over the register and said, "Can you make sure it's extra hot?" Last time it was lukewarm. I looked him dead in the eye. "Absolutely. I'll punish the milk personally." He blinked. Behind me, Janelle snorted into a sleeve of paper cups. The morning rush came in soaked and irritable. Portland had 2 temperatures in November, wet and emotionally manipulative. Umbrellas dripped on the floor. Espresso hissed. Someone complained that our vegan pumpkin loaf tasted too sincere. I smiled until my cheeks ached and imagined gently feeding him the receipt. At 10, during my break, I checked my messages again because apparently I enjoyed pain recreationally. Voicemail from the mechanic. "Hey Anna, it's Cal. So, the noise your Honda's making? Not great. Call me." Not great was mechanic for this will financially ruin you. There was also an email from the hospital billing department about Maya's last emergency room visit. Her sister had cried when she asked if I could cover part of it until insurance finished arguing with the concept of mercy. I had said yes. Of course I had said yes. Maya had held my hair back in college when I threw up tequila and bad decisions. She had mailed me groceries when I was between jobs and too proud to ask. She had told me 3 weeks before she died, "Don't become one of those tragic bitches who learns pottery, because I'm gone." So I had not learned pottery. I had learned how to survive on canned soup and rage. My phone buzzed again. This time the message came from an unknown number. "I have a job for you. 1 night. No violence. $150,000. I stared at it, then typed, "Wrong number. Unless this is about selling feet pics, in which case my arches are emotionally unavailable." 3 dots appeared immediately. Not wrong number. Anna Annabel. 27. Current debt, $41,806. Rent delinquent. Vehicle repair pending. You need money. The air in the storage room changed. I looked toward the door, suddenly aware of the muffled sounds of the cafe outside. The grinder. Janelle laughing. Rainwater gurgling through the gutters. My thumb hovered over the screen. Who is this? A reply came with an attachment. Not a photo, a floor plan. I opened it before common sense could tackle me. A mansion unfolded across my screen in crisp black lines. Service corridors, alarm points, camera coverage. A lower level labeled Private Collection. Another message appeared. Elijah Draven, West Hills Estate. Item: Morning Star Diamond. Retrieve it tonight. Deliver to locker 118 at Union Station by 4 a.m. Payment transferred upon delivery. I knew that name. Everybody in Portland knew that name in the way people knew the names of old money they never actually saw. Draven owned half the historic properties rich people pretended were haunted for charm. He donated to museums, bought forests, funded political campaigns without appearing at fundraisers. A billionaire ghost with excellent lawyers. I typed, "I'm not a thief." The response came too fast. "Tonight, you can be." I should have deleted the message, blocked the number, called the police. Actually, no. I was a black woman with a cracked phone, overdrafted account, and a mysterious criminal proposition involving a billionaire's diamond. Calling the police sounded like volunteering to become a cautionary tale. So I shoved the phone into my apron and went back to work. For 6 hours, I tried to forget it. I failed. At my second job, I delivered food in a rainstorm so aggressive it felt personal. My Honda coughed every time I stopped at a light. The heater blew cold air because apparently it had chosen solidarity with my bank account. At 8:17 p.m., I pulled into the parking lot behind a Thai restaurant and called Cal. He answered on the third ring. "Anna, that tone already owes me money." He sighed. "Your transmission's slipping." I closed my eyes. "Can it slip back?" "It's not safe to keep driving." "Cal, the car is how I make money." "I know." "How much?" A pause. The kind of pause men used before saying something that should legally come with a chair. "Minimum 2,800. Could be more." I laughed again. Cal didn't. "Anna," he said softly, "I'm sorry." That almost made it worse. Kindness had become a dangerous thing lately. It got under the skin, found the soft places. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." After I hung up, I sat in the car with both hands on the steering wheel while rain hammered the windshield. My phone glowed from the passenger seat. Unknown number. Waiting. Maya would have called me a dumb bitch. She also would have said, "But if you're going to be a dumb bitch, be a smart dumb bitch." I picked up the phone. "No violence?" The answer arrived. "No violence." The house is empty between midnight and 2:30. Security reset window at 12:17. Codes attached. A second attachment appeared. Alarm codes? Guard rotations? Photographs of a black iron gate, a service entrance, a keypad beneath a bronze lion's head. My stomach twisted. Too easy. Nothing in my life was ever easy, unless it was bait. I typed, "Why me?" For the first time, the reply took almost a minute. "Because you can get in." That was not an answer. It was a warning wearing an answer's clothes. I should have stopped there. Instead, I drove home. At 11:41, I stood in my apartment wearing black jeans, black boots, and a rain jacket I had bought from Goodwill after someone else gave up on staying dry. My hair was pulled back. My hands shook as I packed gloves, a flashlight, a cheap glass cutter from a hardware store, and the kind of courage that was mostly panic with better posture. On my way out, I glanced at Maya's funeral program. "Do not judge me," I told her picture. The woman in the photo smiled like she absolutely was. The Draven estate sat high in the West Hills behind trees older than my worst decisions. The houses up there did not look lived in. They looked curated. Stone walls, long drives, iron gates. Wealth so quiet it felt predatory. I parked half a mile away because the instructions told me to, then walked through the rain with my hood up and my heart trying to fight its way out of my chest. At exactly 12:17, I reached the bronze lion keypad. My gloved fingers punched in the code. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then the gate clicked, swung inward. I stared through it. "Well," I whispered, "that's horrifying." The driveway curved between black pines toward a mansion built from dark stone and sharp angles, its windows tall and unlit. It didn't look empty. It looked asleep. That was worse. I followed the map around the east side of the house, found the service entrance beneath a narrow awning, and entered the second code. The door unlocked with a soft mechanical sigh. Inside, the air was cold enough to raise bumps along my arms. Not abandoned cold. Preserved cold. My flashlight skimmed over marble floors, oil paintings, carved wood, and ceilings high enough to make a person feel rude for breathing. There were no alarms, no guards, no billionaire ghosts floating around in silk pajamas asking why a broke woman smelled like pad thai and poor choices. Just silence. The instructions led me through a pantry larger than my apartment, down a corridor, past a locked wine room, and toward a plain black door tucked behind a velvet curtain. The final note on the map read, "Lower level. Private collection. Do not touch anything except the morning star." I swallowed. Beyond the door, stairs descended into darkness. Every sensible part of me begged to turn around. Unfortunately, none of my sensible parts were paying rent. I opened the door and stepped down. The air changed on the third stair. Colder. Older. Like the house had stopped pretending to be a house at all. Behind me, the black door swung shut with a quiet final click. The door did not open again. I tried the handle twice, then a third time, with the kind of optimism usually reserved for lottery tickets and men who said they were working on themselves. Nothing. "Okay," I whispered to the darkness. "That's fine. Locked in a billionaire's murder basement. Love that for me." My voice vanished down the stairwell without an echo. I turned back toward the steps. They descended farther than the floor plan had suggested, carved from dark stone and lit by thin strips of light embedded along the walls. Not modern light. Not exactly. It had a cold silver quality that made my skin prickle beneath my jacket. The air smelled wrong. Old paper. Metal. Rain-soaked earth. And underneath all of that, something sharper. Like a match struck in a closed room. I kept one hand on the wall as I moved down. The stone felt damp and strangely warm, as if something alive breathed behind it. That thought was so profoundly unwelcome that I shoved it into the mental drawer labeled, "Things we will not be dealing with tonight." At the bottom of the stairs, the hall opened into a corridor lined with black doors. No cameras, no guards, no alarms blaring, no billionaire in a velvet robe asking why I'd broken into his house like the world's least qualified criminal. That should have comforted me. It did not. I pulled out my phone and checked the map. The little blue dot had frozen because apparently GPS was not built for secret underground rich people bullshit. Still, the floor plan showed one long passage, then a vault on the right. I followed it. Halfway down, I passed a glass case set into the wall. Inside was a silver knife, so old it looked ceremonial, its handle wrapped in cracked black leather. The label beneath it was written in a language I did not recognize. I kept walking. Another case held a crown. Not the shiny fairy tale kind. This one was thin, jagged, and dark. More like a weapon someone had bent into a circle. I did not stop to admire it. I had enough problems without being murdered by haunted accessories. The vault waited at the end of the corridor. Unlike everything else down here, it was brutally modern. Smooth steel, no visible hinges. A keypad glowing blue beside it. I typed in the code from the message. The keypad flashed green. The vault door sighed open. "See?" I muttered, mostly to keep myself from shaking. Crime can be user-friendly. Inside the room was circular and freezing. Glass displays curved along the walls, each holding some artifact that looked expensive, illegal, or cursed. Sometimes all three. A golden cup, a necklace threaded with red stones, a book chained shut, a painting turned toward the wall, and in the center of the room, beneath a clear case, sat the diamond. The morning star. It was smaller than I expected. Maybe the size of a large plum, cut in countless sharp facets. But it was not clear like diamonds in jewelry store windows. It was black at the center, silver at the edges, with a faint pulse of light moving through it like a slow heartbeat. I stood there staring. "Nope," I said. The diamond pulsed again. My own heart answered hard against my ribs. I should have left. That would have been the reasonable choice. Walk out, slam every door behind me, call the unknown number and tell them the rock was haunted, and I was no longer accepting freelance opportunities from Satan. Instead, I stepped closer. The case had no visible lock. The instructions said to use the glass cutter along the upper seam, lift the panel, remove the diamond, place it in the lined pouch, and leave. Simple. Criminal, but simple. I pulled the glass cutter from my pocket and set the blade to the seam. The moment metal touched glass, the diamond's pulse stopped. So did I. The silence changed shape around me. Then the cutter slipped. Pain flashed through my finger. Shit! I jerked my hand back. The glove had split and a clean line of blood opened along the side of my index finger. A bead swelled, dark and bright, then fell before I could catch it. It landed on the glass. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the blood sank through. Not slid, not smeared, sank, as if the glass had swallowed it. "Oh," I breathed. "Absolutely not." Behind me, a man said, "Step away from it." I spun so fast my shoulder hit the display case. He stood inside the vault entrance. No footsteps, no warning, no sound of the door. Just there. Tall, dressed in black, dark hair falling loose over his forehead like he had been interrupted from brooding professionally. His face was beautiful in a way that irritated me immediately, all sharp bone structure and calm menace. He looked like he had never once stood in line at the DMV, and therefore could not be trusted. I held up my bleeding hand. "Hi," I said. "I can explain." His gaze dropped to my finger. Something changed in his expression. Not hunger exactly. Worse. Interest. "You are bleeding," he said. "Yes. Thank you. I was there." His eyes lifted back to mine. They were dark. Not brown. Not black. Something deeper, with a red sheen buried under the surface like coals under ash. I took a step sideways. He took none. Still, he was suddenly closer. My breath snagged. No human moved like that. "I said step away from it," he repeated. I swallowed. "And I heard you. But I'm going to be honest, your hospitality needs work. This is not a negotiation. Most things are if everyone stays calm, and nobody does." I gestured at him. "Whatever that was." His head tilted slightly. "Who sent you?" "No one." The lights flickered. He smiled. It was not a smile anyone should want directed at them. "Lie better." My back pressed against the glass case. The diamond behind me began pulsing again, slower now, as if listening. The man's voice lowered. "Tell me who sent you." The words moved through the room strangely. They did not sound louder, but they pressed against my skull. Heat unfurled behind my eyes. For one terrifying second, my mouth opened without permission. A name rose to my tongue, except I did not know one. There was only the unknown number, the floor plan, the money, the sickening feeling of having been chosen for a reason I did not understand. The pressure increased. My knees weakened. Then something inside me pushed back. Not bravely, not elegantly, more like my entire soul throwing a chair. "Fuck you!" I gasped. The pressure snapped. The man went utterly still. I dragged in air, trembling so hard my teeth nearly clicked together. His stare sharpened. That should have worked. Well, it didn't. Technology is like that sometimes. That was not technology. No, because I was about to leave a bad review. He moved again. One blink, he was several feet away. The next, he was in front of me, one hand braced beside my head against the glass case. Cold radiated from him. Not the normal kind. Not winter. Grave cold. My body, traitorous and apparently suicidal, noticed the rest of him anyway. The breadth of his shoulders, the clean line of his mouth, the way danger fit him like a tailored coat. I hated that. I hated it intensely. His nostrils flared as he looked at my bleeding finger. Then his lips parted. Fangs slid into view. I stared. My mind took a calm, professional inventory and then set itself on fire. "You're a vampire." "At last," he said. "Comprehension." "In Portland?" His brow twitched. "That is your concern?" "I feel like it's valid. Shouldn't you be in a castle harassing villagers?" "You broke into my home." "You have a vampire vault. Let's not act like I'm the only one making questionable life choices." His eyes narrowed. "Do you know who I am? Rich, rude, dental anomaly. Elijah Draven." I blinked. "Elijah?" "Yes." I looked him over before I could stop myself. "That's unfortunate." His expression did not change, but the room seemed to grow colder. "Excuse me? I just don't think Elijah suits you." "And what name would?" I considered him. The fangs, the murder eyes, the general atmosphere of wealthy homicide. Something with more murder in it. For half a second the silence felt different, like I had surprised him. Then his hand shot out and closed around my wrist. I reacted on instinct, twisting hard, but he was immovable. His grip was iron wrapped in ice. My bleeding finger brushed his palm, and I felt wetness there that was not mine. He glanced down. A thin cut had opened across his hand, black-red blood welling from a line that looked older than the moment itself. The diamond screamed, not out loud, inside me. Light burst from the case, violent and red, filling the vault so completely I could see the bones in Elijah's hand where he held me. The floor shuddered. Every glass case along the walls rattled. Elijah released me as if burned. Too late. My blood and his had touched. The red light wrapped around my wrist, hot as wire. I cried out and grabbed my arm, but the pain was already sinking under my skin, drawing lines I could feel more than see. Across from me, Elijah staggered one step back. The same mark burned into his wrist. For the first time since he had appeared, the monster looked afraid. "No," he said. The morning star split open with light, and somewhere deep beneath the house, something very old woke up. The diamond's scream did not end. It sank, under my skin, behind my ribs, into the soft, private places of me that no piece of jewelry had any damn business entering. I hit the floor on one knee, clutching my wrist as red light coiled beneath my skin. The mark burned there, thin and elegant, like someone had drawn a ring of thorns around my pulse with fire. Across from me, Elijah Draven stared at his own wrist. Same mark, same blood-red glow. His expression had emptied of arrogance. That scared me more than the fangs. "Elijah," I said, because apparently fear had made us familiar. "What the hell is this?" He didn't answer. The diamond pulsed once inside its case. The entire vault answered. A low sound rolled through the walls, not quite a bell, not quite thunder. The glass displays trembled. Somewhere beyond the steel door, locks began opening one after another, a deep, mechanical sequence that sounded like the house was undoing itself. Elijah's head snapped toward the corridor. "No one comes in," he said. His voice was quiet. It still hit the walls like a commandment. For half a second, everything obeyed. Then the vault door opened wider. People entered. At least they looked like people at first. Beautiful people. Cold people. Men and women dressed in black, burgundy, silver, and deep green, moving with that same wrong silence Elijah had. No shuffling. No breathless rush. One moment the corridor was empty. The next, it was full of strangers with sharp eyes and still mouths. A woman near the front looked at Elijah's wrist, then mine. Her lips parted. "My king," she whispered. My brain, already under severe duress, tripped over that and fell down a flight of stairs. King? I repeated. I'm sorry. Did she say king? No one looked at me. Rude, considering I was bleeding, branded, and very much available for questions. An older man stepped forward. He wore a long dark coat fastened at the throat, with a silver clasp shaped like a bird skull. His eyes moved from the diamond to the mark on Elijah's wrist, then to mine. The morning star has awakened. Elijah's jaw tightened. I can see that. It chose. It malfunctioned. A ripple moved through the gathered vampires. I knew they were vampires now. My mind had stopped trying to be cute about it. Too still, too beautiful, too focused on the blood drying on my finger. The old man's gaze settled on me with the warmth of a judge at sentencing. Blood does not malfunction. Well, mine might, I said. I'm anemic half the time and running on gas station coffee. A few heads turned. Elijah closed his eyes for one pained second, like I had become a personal trial designed by God. The old man ignored me. Royal blood touched living blood before the relic. The bond has formed. The bond will be severed, Elijah said. It cannot be severed. Then it will be contained. It cannot be contained. Then you will find someone more useful to tell me what can be done. That made the room colder. The old man bowed his head, but he did not retreat. The law is older than this court. Older than your reign. My reign is older than every vampire in this room except 3, Elijah said. Choose your next words carefully. My stomach dropped. I looked at him again. Not billionaire, not security, not even monster, though that box was firmly checked. King. An actual undead king in a murder basement under the West Hills. I had made a mistake of historic proportions. The old man lowered his gaze. The morning star recognizes her as bride. My ears rang. No, I said. Elijah spoke at the same time. No. For one stupid, terrible second, we were united. Then I pointed at him. Don't say no, like you're the offended party. His eyes cut to mine. You broke into my home. You grabbed me. You were stealing from me. You own a vampire diamond that performs surprise weddings. I feel like the moral high ground is complicated here. A sound came from someone in the back. Not quite a laugh. Elijah's gaze moved toward it and the sound died immediately. I pushed myself to my feet. My knees did not appreciate the ambition, but pride handled the paperwork. I'm not anyone's bride, I said. I did not agree to anything. There was no proposal, no ring, no witnesses I actually wanted present, and I'm almost positive being threatened in a vault invalidates the romance. The relic requires blood, the old man said. Not consent. My vision went hot at the edges. Then your relic is a piece of shit. This time several vampires hissed. Elijah moved before they finished. He didn't touch me. He simply placed himself half a step closer, between me and the room. It was subtle enough that I almost missed it. Almost. Enough, he said. I wasn't sure if he meant me or them. Either way, I disliked it. The diamond dimmed slowly, though the mark around my wrist continued to burn. Elijah looked at it like it had betrayed him personally. Seal the estate, he ordered. No one leaves, no one enters. Wake the archivists. Bring every record of the Morning Star to the lower court. The old man bowed. And the human? The human has a name, I snapped. Elijah turned to me. Anna Annabel. Hearing my name in his mouth did something unwelcome to my spine. Not now, body. Absolutely not now. His eyes narrowed, as if he had heard the thought. For all I knew, he had. Vampires were already doing too much tonight. You will tell me who sent you, he said. I already told you. I don't know. Your phone. I pulled it from my pocket with stiff fingers, mostly because I wanted proof that someone else had shoved me into this nightmare. The screen lit up, cracked but functional. The messages were gone. The floor plans, the codes, the unknown number. All of it. My mouth went dry. No, I whispered, scrolling. No, they were right here. Elijah's expression sharpened. The old man looked smug in a way that made me want to bite him first. Convenient. I lifted my head. Say convenient again and I'll make this marriage a widow situation. Elijah's hand closed around my wrist. Not hard, but enough to stop me from taking a step toward the old man. The mark flared between his fingers. We both felt it. His grip loosened immediately. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or pain. You remember the messages, he said. Yes. Then I will see them. No, the fuck you will not. His stare held mine. Someone powerful enough to erase evidence after breaching my estate used you to reach the Morning Star. If you want to live through what comes next, we need to know who. If I want to live, I repeated. That is not the comforting sales pitch you think it is. It was not meant to comfort you. Clearly. The old man said, My king, if she has been planted, Elijah did not look away from me. Silence, Severin. So, Skull Clasp had a name. Severin's mouth closed. Elijah's voice lowered. I will not alter anything. I will look only for tonight. The messages, the route, the face or voice behind it, if one exists. And I'm supposed to trust you? No. At least he was honest. You are supposed to understand, he continued, that whatever planned this has already touched your life once. It will do so again. The mark pulsed. A beat under my skin. Like a second heart that did not belong to me. I thought of my rent notice, my dead car, Maya's funeral program smiling from the dresser, the unknown number knowing exactly how desperate I was. My throat tightened. Fine, I said. But if you go digging around in anything personal, I will find a way to make your undead life incredibly inconvenient. For the first time, a trace of dry amusement crossed his mouth. I believe you. Then he stepped closer. The room narrowed to him. Cold fingers touched my temple. Not his actual fingers, those rested lightly against my skin, but something else slid behind my eyes, controlled and sharp. I stiffened. Images moved. My phone buzzing in the cafe storage room. The unknown number, the floor plan, my car in the rain, the bronze lion keypad, the service entrance. Then something jerked sideways. Maya's funeral program flashed across my mind. Her smile, the hospital smell. My own hands gripping a paper cup of coffee gone cold while her sister cried into my shoulder. Elijah stopped, pulled back from that memory as if it had burned him. For one impossible second, his expression changed. Not pity, something quieter. Then the memory of the messages returned, and he pushed forward with exacting focus. I felt him reach for the unknown sender. There was nothing there. Not emptiness. A wall. Black, smooth, seamless. A hole cut into my memory, in the shape of whoever had sent me. Elijah withdrew so abruptly, I stumbled. He caught my elbow. I hated that I needed it. What? I demanded. His gaze moved to Severin. Veiled. Murmurs broke through the vault. Impossible, someone whispered. Witchcraft? No, Elijah said. Older. My stomach turned. He released me carefully, like touching me had become dangerous or precious. I did not like either possibility. Severin stared at the mark on my wrist. Then this was an attack. Yes, Elijah said. And she is the instrument. I am standing right here, I said. Severin looked at me then, and for the first time I saw the hunger beneath his courtly disdain. I know. Elijah's voice cut through the room. You will not speak to her that way. Silence fell hard. The diamond pulsed again. Once. Twice. Then the old man bowed his head. Not to Elijah this time. To me. Oh, no, absolutely not. All around the vault, vampires lowered themselves one by one. Knees touched stone, heads bowed. The movement spread into the corridor, a wave of ancient monsters folding themselves at my feet, My heart hammered so violently I thought it might bruise itself. Severin's voice filled the chamber. Blood has answered blood. The morning star has spoken. I looked at Elijah. His face was carved from fury. Severin bowed lower. Hail, Anna Annabel, bride of the king. The vampires answered as one. Queen. The first thing I learned about being queen of the vampires was that nobody cared if I personally objected to the job. The second thing I learned was that vampires had no reasonable concept of personal space. After the entire room knelt and called me queen, I did what any emotionally stable woman would do after being magically married in a basement by a haunted diamond. I laughed. Once, very loudly. Every vampire in the vault looked up. No, I said, pointing at the floor like the word might stick better if I directed traffic. Absolutely not. Everybody stand up. This is embarrassing for all of us. No one moved. Elijah stood beside me, silent and furious. The red mark around his wrist still glowing beneath the edge of his black sleeve. Mine burned in answer every time I looked at it, which felt rude. I had not agreed to matching jewelry with a vampire king. Elijah, I said tightly. His gaze cut to mine. I hated that his name already felt different in my mouth. Less like a stranger's. More like a problem with excellent cheekbones. Tell them to stop kneeling. They are not kneeling because I asked them to. Well, on, ask harder. A muscle ticked in his jaw. From the floor, Lord Severin lifted his head. The court recognizes what blood has made. The court can recognize my ass, I snapped. I'm going home. No, Elijah said. One word, cold, final. I turned slowly. No. No. I laughed again, but this one had teeth in it. I don't know if anyone has updated your ancient little government down here, but kidnapping is still illegal upstairs. You broke into my estate, and I'm starting to feel underappreciated for the effort. His eyes narrowed. You are not leaving until I know who sent you and why the Morning Star accepted your blood. The Morning Star can take its acceptance and choke. Several vampires hissed. Elijah looked at them. The hissing stopped. That was new, and deeply irritating. I had never been in a room where one glance could shut up 30 predators. If I tried that at Bitter Saint Coffee, someone would still ask whether the almond milk was organic. Elijah turned away. Cassian. A man stepped from the corridor. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and built like someone had carved discipline into a body. His dark hair was tied at the nape of his neck. A scar cut through one eyebrow, pale against deep olive skin, and his expression suggested joy was something he had once heard about, but never personally endorsed. My king. Anna does not leave the estate. My head whipped toward him. Anna does not appreciate being discussed like a suspicious package. Elijah continued as if I had not spoken. No one approaches her without my permission. No one feeds near her. No one enters her chambers. Cassian bowed once. Understood. Wait, I said. My chambers? Elijah looked at me. Yes. I have an apartment. You had an apartment. Excuse me? You will not return there tonight. My rent is late, not dead. His mouth flattened. This is not about rent. Everything is about rent. For one brief, impossible second, amusement touched his eyes. Then it was gone. Take her to the east wing, he ordered. Cassian stepped closer. I stepped back. If you touch me, I will scream. He paused. Not because I think screaming will help, I added, just because I want everyone to have a bad time. Cassian looked at Elijah. Elijah looked tired. Wonderful. I had known him less than an hour and was already exhausting him. Walk, Elijah said. I walked. Not because he told me to, because staying in the vault with kneeling vampires and the murder diamond felt like volunteering for a sequel. The corridors beyond the vault opened into a world I had no interest in admitting was beautiful. Black stone halls curved beneath the mansion, lit by glass globes that burned with blue-white flame. Arched ceilings disappeared into shadow. Carved doors lined the walls, each marked with symbols that made my wrist ache when I glanced at them too long. Vampires watched us pass. Some bowed, some whispered, some looked at my throat. That last group made my stomach tighten. "Elijah," I said under my breath. He walked at my side, not behind me, not ahead. Close enough that the cold coming off him brushed my arm. "Yes?" "Why do they keep looking at me like I'm a limited edition snack?" Cassian made a sound that might have been a cough. Elijah did not look amused. "Because they are fools. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. You keep saying things like that, and I keep wanting to throw something at you. You should resist the impulse." Historically, I'm bad at that. This time his mouth moved. Barely. Not a smile exactly. More like his face remembered the concept and disapproved. We climbed a staircase wide enough for a cathedral and emerged into the mansion above. The place was worse in full view. Rich people loved making houses that looked like they expected applause. Dark wood, stone fireplaces, oil paintings, velvet drapes. Everything smelled faintly of cedar, rain, and money that had never worried about overdraft fees. The east wing apparently meant a suite larger than my entire apartment building. Cassian opened double doors into a bedroom with a fireplace, a sitting room, a bathroom made of black marble, and a bed big enough for 6 people with unresolved sexual tension. I stood in the doorway. "No." Elijah stopped beside me. "No. I am not sleeping in Dracula's bridal Airbnb." Cassian blinked. Elijah's voice cooled. Dracula was Romanian, irritating, and younger than rumor suggests. I stared at him. "You knew Dracula?" "Unfortunately." "Oh my God." "There's a dressing room through there," he said, ignoring me. I didn't ask for a dressing room. Nor did I ask for a wife. That landed harder than it should have. I hated that it did. "Great," I said. "Then we're both suffering." A woman entered carrying folded clothes over one arm. She looked no older than 30, though I was rapidly learning that meant absolutely nothing down here. She bowed to me so deeply, I almost checked behind me for someone with actual authority. "Your Majesty?" "Nope, Anna." Her eyes flicked nervously toward Elijah. "Anna," he said with enough annoyance to Sandwood. The woman swallowed. "Anna, these are for you." She laid out black silk, dark green velvet, a robe embroidered with silver thread, and something sheer enough to get arrested in most public libraries. I lifted one piece between 2 fingers. "Is this a dress or a threat?" "It is court attire," Elijah said. "It has no back." "It has a back." "It has a rumor of a back." His gaze dropped to the garment, then, very unfortunately, to me. The room warmed in places it had no business warming. His eyes lifted slowly. "Wear what you like," he said. "Generous, considering they're my clothes now. They are not yours. They belong to the royal household." "Of course they do. God forbid I own the slutty napkin." Cassian looked at the wall like it had become urgently fascinating. The woman made a tiny, strangled noise. Elijah stared at me for a long moment, then turned toward the door. "Morella will examine the mark." "Will she ask first?" He stopped. The question hung there, sharper than I intended. Or maybe exactly as sharp as I intended. Slowly, Elijah turned back. "Yes." Good. That mattered. A few minutes later, Morella arrived with a black leather case and the unsettling grace of a woman who had never spilled coffee on herself in her life. Her silver-streaked hair was pinned high, her dress a severe shade of red, and her eyes were the color of old coins. She bowed, but unlike the others, she studied me like a puzzle she did not trust. "May I?" she asked, holding out a hand. I gave her my wrist. The second her fingers touched the mark, it flared. Morella went still. Elijah, who had been pretending not to watch from near the fireplace, looked over sharply. "What?" I asked. Morella's expression smoothed too quickly. "The bond is deep." "That sounds bad." "It is unusual." "People keep saying unusual when they mean I should panic." Her gaze flicked to Elijah's wrist. Something passed between them. A warning. A secret. My skin tightened. "Elijah?" Morella said quietly. "Has it—" "No," he said. One syllable. Morella closed her mouth. I looked from one to the other. I know I'm new to vampire marriage, but secret medical whispering feels like a red flag. "It is not medical," Elijah said. "Then what is it?" Neither answered. Fantastic. Before I could push harder, another man appeared in the open doorway, lounging against the frame as if he had been invited by chaos itself. He was beautiful in a lazy, dangerous way, with golden brown skin, dark curls, and a smile designed to make poor decisions feel reasonable. "Is this her?" he asked. Elijah did not move. "Lucian." Lucian's smile widened. "I'll take that as yes." He bowed to me with theatrical elegance. "Lucian Ardon. Courtier, occasional disappointment, and your best chance at surviving dinner conversation. I'm not staying for dinner." Optimistic. I like that. Elijah's eyes went flat. "Leave." In a moment, Lucian's gaze slid to my wrist, then my face. The humor in him softened into something almost sincere. "A word of advice, Your Majesty. Anna." "Anna," he corrected smoothly. "Do not bleed where anyone can smell it." My stomach tightened. Elijah already gave me the snack warning. Lucian's smile thinned. "Then let me give you the honest version. Some will bow because the law commands it. Some will bow because they are curious. And some will bow because it brings their mouths closer to your veins." The room went silent. Elijah stepped forward. Lucian lifted both hands. "Helpful. I was being helpful. You are testing my patience." I thought that was her job now. I almost liked him. That was suspicious. A cold voice cut in from the hall. "How charming. The human already has admirers." The woman who entered did not bow. That told me enough before anyone said her name. She was stunning, the kind of beautiful that felt sharpened instead of softened. Long black hair, burgundy mouth. A gown that clung to her like spilled wine. Her eyes moved over me slowly, taking inventory and finding me lacking. Then she looked at Elijah. Not like a subject, like a woman who had touched him. My stomach did something stupid. "Elijah," she said. His face became unreadable. "Jovia." Ah, there it was. History. Not a rumor, not a possibility. A whole damn chapter standing in my doorway with perfect posture and murder lipstick. Jovia's gaze dropped to my wrist. "So it is true." "Unfortunately," I said. Her eyes returned to mine. "You find this amusing?" "No, I find it involuntary." She smiled without warmth. "Careful, human. The court enjoys novelty, but novelty spoils quickly." Elijah's voice turned lethal. "Enough." Jovia looked at him then, and something ugly moved beneath her elegance. Hurt, maybe. Possession. Rage dressed in perfume. "Of course, my king." She bowed that time. Barely. Then she left, taking half the oxygen with her. I waited until the hallway went quiet. "So," I said, "she seems healthy." Elijah's stare warned me not to continue. "Naturally," I continued. "Old friend? Political enemy? Ex-girlfriend? Woman who has definitely seen you naked and now wants to peel my skin off?" "Jovia means nothing." I didn't ask. "No," he said, watching me too closely. "You didn't." Heat crawled up my neck. I hated him. I hated that he noticed. I hated that some part of me wanted to know exactly what nothing meant when a man like him said it. Hours later, though time had started behaving strangely, I sat alone in the enormous bedroom wearing my own damp black jeans because I refused to be bullied by Velvet. Cassian stood outside the door. Elijah had gone to do whatever vampire kings did after ruining a woman's life. Probably brood over tax documents written in blood. I should have slept. Instead, I opened the door quietly. Cassian was not there. That was the first mistake. The second was following the voices drifting from the hall to the balcony overlooking the lower court. 2 vampires stood below, half hidden beside a column. "She smells like him," one whispered. "And like herself," the other said. "Warm, living, royal blood beneath the skin." My hand tightened around the railing. The bond must have changed her taste. "Imagine it," the first said, voice going thick. "The king's blood in a human throat. She is queen." A soft laugh. "She is a cup with a crown." My pulse stumbled. Below, both vampires went still. Then, slowly, they looked up.
The 2 vampires below the balcony looked up at Anna as if they had heard dinner breathing. For a moment, no one moved. Then the taller one smiled. It was not a friendly expression. It was the careful baring of teeth by something old enough to understand manners and hungry enough to ignore them. "Your Majesty," he said. Anna's fingers tightened around the balcony rail. "Funny, you did not sound that respectful 5 seconds ago." The second vampire lowered his head, but his gaze lingered on her throat. "Forgive us. We did not realize you were listening." "Oh, that makes it better. You only call women cups with crowns when you think they're out of earshot." A shadow moved behind her. Cassian appeared so silently, Anna almost jumped out of her skin. "Step away from the balcony," he said. She did not look at him. "You were outside my door." I was. And yet here I am, unsupervised and being emotionally seasoned by vampires. Cassian's jaw tightened. "Step away." Below them, the 2 vampires bowed lower. Not from respect this time, from fear. Elijah's voice came from the far end of the gallery. "She asked you a question." The entire lower court went still. Anna turned. Elijah stood beneath an archway, dressed in black as always, his expression calm enough to be obscene. That was the terrible thing about him, she was beginning to realize. His anger did not make him louder. It made the world quieter around him. The taller vampire below swallowed. "My king, did you call my wife a cup?" Anna's pulse kicked. His wife. The word slid under her skin before she could stop it, hot and unwelcome. She hated the way the mark around her wrist answered, a faint pulse beneath the sleeve of her borrowed shirt. "Technically," Anna said, because self-preservation remained a distant acquaintance, "he called me a cup with a crown." Elijah did not look at her. "That distinction does not improve his situation." The vampire dropped to one knee. "I meant no offense." "You meant hunger." Elijah's gaze lowered, lethal and unblinking. "Leave the lower court before I decide your appetite requires correction." Both vampires vanished so quickly Anna's eyes could not follow. Cassian exhaled through his nose. It was almost a sigh. Anna looked at Elijah. "Do you practice that voice in a mirror?" His stare shifted to her. "Return to your chambers." And there it is, the romance. Now, still not romance. Cassian's mouth twitched once, barely. Then he remembered joy was illegal and straightened. That was how the next 2 days went. Anna learned that being trapped in a vampire estate was less like being imprisoned in a gothic fantasy and more like being held hostage by a homeowners association with fangs. There were rules for everything. She could not enter certain halls without an escort. She could not open red-marked doors. She could not descend below the eastern staircase after midnight. She could not answer a knock unless Cassian approved the visitor. She could not bleed unattended, which was possibly the most disturbing rule anyone had ever said to her with a straight face. When a servant named Alira brought breakfast at noon, because apparently vampires respected neither sunlight nor meal categories, Anna stared at the silver tray. "Is this coffee?" Alira bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Anna." "Yes, Anna." Anna lifted the cup and inhaled. Real coffee. Strong, dark, hot enough to revive a corpse, which felt thematically insensitive. She took one sip and nearly forgave the kidnapping. Then Elijah walked in without knocking. Anna threw a croissant at him. He caught it one-handed. Alira froze in horror. Elijah looked at the pastry in his hand, then at Anna. "Was that necessary?" "You entered my room without knocking. This is my estate." This is my bedroom. It is a royal suite. It is where my bra is currently drying over a chair, so knock. His gaze betrayed him. It flicked quickly and unwillingly toward the chair near the fireplace. The black lace bra hung there like evidence. Anna felt heat rise up her neck and hated him for noticing. Elijah looked back at her, face unreadable. Cassian will remain inside the sitting room from now on. No. Yes. No, because I am not having your emotionally constipated guard listen to me sleep. Cassian, stationed just outside the open door, said flatly, I have no interest in listening to you sleep. That makes two of us, Cassian. Elijah's patience visibly thinned. Your safety is not negotiable. My privacy is. Not while half the court wonders what your blood tastes like. She set the coffee down. You keep saying horrifying things like they're calendar reminders. Because you keep behaving as if stubbornness is armor. And you keep behaving as if, because I said so, is a legal argument. It is when I am king. Anna stared at him. That may be the least sexy thing you've said, and you once threatened to search my memories in a basement. Something dark moved through his eyes at the word sexy. Not much. Enough. The air between them tightened. Alira seemed to decide death was preferable to standing there and quietly backed out of the room. Cassian looked at the ceiling. Elijah's voice lowered. Do not mistake my restraint for patience, Anna. She smiled without humor. Do not mistake my forced proximity for obedience, Elijah. His name landed between them differently every time she used it. A challenge, a bite. He stepped closer. The mark on her wrist warmed. Anna refused to move back. His gaze dropped to her mouth for half a breath, then lifted again. You are becoming a problem. I was a problem before you married me. Try to keep up. That evening, boredom became more dangerous than fear. Cassian stood outside her door like a monument to bad moods. Elijah had disappeared into court business. The suite was beautiful, oppressive, and full of fabrics that cost more than her car repairs. Anna paced for 20 minutes. Then she noticed the servant panel behind the dressing room mirror. It was a narrow thing, cleverly hidden in the carved frame. Someone had used it earlier to deliver fresh towels. Someone had also failed to lock it. A smarter woman would have stayed put. Anna had never claimed to be smarter than her own impatience. She slipped through. The passage behind the wall was cramped, dusty, and lit by faint amber bulbs. It smelled like stone and old wood. She moved quietly, one hand against the wall, following distant sounds downward. Voices, music. A low, rhythmic pulse like drums under the floor. The passage opened behind a tapestry into a part of the estate she had not seen. The underground court was alive below her. Vampires gathered in arched halls, speaking in low voices, laughing softly, drinking from crystal glasses filled with something too red to be wine. Anna stayed near the wall. She should have turned back. Instead, she followed the sound of water through a corridor marked with red symbols she could not read. The air changed. Warmth drifted from a half-open door ahead. Perfume, iron skin. A groan, low and intimate, rolled into the hallway. Anna stopped. Inside the chamber, velvet couches curved around a black marble fountain. Vampires fed from willing donors in a haze of candlelight and murmured pleasure. A woman arched beneath the mouth at her throat, fingers tangled in dark hair, her gasp trembling on the edge of pain and need. Anna's stomach twisted. Not disgust, not exactly. Something more complicated. Then one of the vampires near the doorway lifted his head. His eyes locked on her. The hunger in his face sharpened instantly. "Oh, hell no!" Anna whispered, backing away. He lunged. She barely had time to turn before he slammed into the corridor wall beside her, close enough that his claws tore through the sleeve of her shirt. She stumbled, struck the opposite wall, and pain flared along her shoulder. His mouth opened. Fangs descended. Then darkness moved. Elijah hit him so hard the stone cracked. The vampire dropped to the floor under Elijah's hand, pinned by the throat. He thrashed once, then went rigid when Elijah leaned down. "Kneel," Elijah said. The vampire collapsed to both knees. Every creature in the feeding chamber fell silent. Elijah did not raise his voice. He did not need to. You smelled her and forgot your law. The vampire shook violently. My king, I didn't know. You knew she was unwilling. The words cut clean through the room. Anna pressed a hand to her shoulder, breathing too fast. Her knees wanted to give out. She refused them the satisfaction. Elijah looked back at her. The fury in him shifted. For 1 second, beneath the monster and the king, there was something else. Fear. Then it was gone. Cassian, he said. Cassian appeared at the corridor's end, expression grim. Anna pointed at him. Don't start. I found a hallway. You escaped through a service passage, Cassian said. Tomato, felony. Elijah rose, still looking at the kneeling vampire. Take him below. No feeding, no court access. Let the elders decide if he remembers his discipline after a month in silence. Cassian seized the vampire and dragged him away. Elijah turned on Anna. What, he said softly, is wrong with you? Her fear ignited into anger because anger was easier to stand on. With me? You walked into a restricted feeding chamber. I walked into a hallway with no sign in English saying, warning, vampires currently sucking necks and making it weird. You were told not to wander. I was told a lot of things by a man who appears in bedrooms without knocking. His eyes flashed. You could have been bitten, but I wasn't. That is not the point. It is exactly the point. You want me locked up because everyone else has self-control issues. I want you alive. The words struck harder than his anger. Anna stared at him. Elijah seemed to realize what he had said a moment after he said it. His face closed, but too late. The mark pulsed between them. He stepped closer, and she backed into the wall, not because she wanted distance, because if she did not put stone behind her, she was afraid she might move toward him. His hand braced near her head. He did not touch her. Somehow that made it worse. You do not understand what you are now, he said. What, yours? His jaw tightened. The silence that followed was filthy with things neither of them should want. Anna's heart hammered. Elijah's gaze dropped to her throat, then lower to the torn edge of her shirt where her shoulders showed. Not like the others had looked, not hungry in the same way. Worse, like he was fighting himself. Do not say that, he murmured. Why? Her voice came out rough. Because it's true or because you hate that it is? His eyes lifted to hers. For a second, the space between them became dangerous for an entirely different reason. Anna was suddenly too aware of his body, of the cold radiating from him, of the hard line of his chest inches from hers, of her own breath catching like a traitor. Fear and heat tangled low in her belly. Then Elijah stepped back. Return to your room, Anna swallowed. Gladly. Neither of them moved. From the shadowed archway at the end of the corridor, Jovia watched. She saw the way Elijah's hand trembled before he lowered it, saw the way his eyes stayed on Anna even after he turned away, saw the concern he had not shown lovers, courtiers, or queens who had died before this human was born. Her beautiful face hardened. Anna Annabel was not a political inconvenience. She was personal, and that made her intolerable. A flicker of movement cut through the corridor. Anna saw it too late. A servant stepped from behind a pillar, eyes blank, arm raised. The knife in his hand was ordinary steel, the kind found in kitchens and pockets in human hands. But the blade was black with something dried and rotten. Elijah moved, fast, not fast enough. The knife sliced across Anna's upper arm. Pain burst hot beneath her skin, then cold, terrible, spreading cold. The mark around her wrist flared red, then flickered. Elijah caught her as her knees buckled. For the first time, the bond between them went silent.
Pain became a language I understood fluently. It spoke in my arm first, sharp and hot where the knife had opened me. Then the heat curdled into cold, spreading beneath my skin in black little veins I could feel, but did not want to look at. My knees folded. Elijah caught me before I hit the floor. For one horrifying second, there was nothing inside me where the bond had been. No pulse, no red heat, no irritating awareness of him hovering beneath my ribs like an unwelcome second heartbeat. just silence. "Elijah," I said, and hated how scared I sounded. His arms tightened around me. "Look at me." "I'd rather not. You're very dramatic." "Anna," I looked. His face was calm. That was how I knew everyone else should start panicking. The servant who had stabbed me stood 10 feet away, still holding the knife. His eyes were empty, his arm hanging limp at his side like someone had cut the strings. Cashin had him pinned against the stone wall with one hand around his throat. The blade clattered to the floor. Black rot coated the steel. Morella arrived so quickly she seemed to pour out of the shadows, red dress whispering over the stone. She took one look at my arm and went very still. "Dead blood," she said. Elijah's expression did not change, but the air around him did. The candles along the corridor bent sideways, flames stretching toward him like they were afraid. "What the fuck is dead blood?" I asked. Morella cut my sleeve open with a silver scalpel from her case. "Vampire blood taken from the body after final death. Left to sour. Weaponized correctly, it disrupts living bonds." "Living bonds," I repeated, breath catching as she pressed something cold and wet to the wound. "Great. Wonderful. Love learning vocabulary while poisoned." Elijah's gaze stayed on the blackened cut. "Can you stop it?" "I can slow it." "Elijah," I said. He looked at me. "The bond is gone." Something moved behind his eyes. Not fear, exactly. Something older and worse. "No," he said. "It is muted." "You say that like it's better." "It is." Morella wrapped my arm tightly. The cloth smelled like herbs, smoke, and metal. "If the blade had gone deeper, Your Majesty—" "Anna," I snapped automatically. Morella did not blink. "Anna, if it had gone deeper, the bond might have severed long enough for the court to reject you." I stared at her. "Reject me how?" No one answered. That was becoming a theme in this house, and I was going to start biting people myself. Elijah rose with me still in his arms. "I can walk," I said. "You can bleed. I can multitask." He ignored me and carried me down the hall like I weighed nothing, which was insulting because I had spent years carrying groceries, debt, grief, and laundry up 3 flights of stairs. A woman earned the right to be heavy. Cassian dragged the servant behind us. The lower court had gathered by the time Elijah brought me into the throne chamber. I had not seen this room before. It was carved into the bones of the hill beneath the estate, all black stone and towering arches. A throne sat at the far end, severe and dark, cut from the same stone as the walls. No gold, no velvet, no decorative royal nonsense. Just power, stripped clean. Elijah set me in a chair beside the dais. Not behind him, beside him. That did not go unnoticed. Whispers moved through the court like insects. Elijah turned. The whispers died. "Seal every exit," he said. "No one leaves this estate. No one enters. If anyone resists, remove their head, and bring me the rest." My mouth went dry. Cassian dropped the servant to his knees before the throne. The man was shaking now. Human, I realized. Middle-aged, with blood leaking from his nose and terror finally finding its way back into his eyes. He looked at the knife on the floor as if he had never seen it before. "I didn't," he whispered. "I didn't mean—" Elijah descended the dais. The court seemed to hold its breath. He crouched in front of the servant. Not rushed, not angry in the way I understood anger. His voice was almost gentle when he spoke. "What is your name?" "Daniel," the man choked. "Daniel. Look at me." Daniel did. His whole body locked. Elijah's eyes darkened until the red inside them burned through. "Who placed the knife in your hand?" Daniel began to cry. "I don't know." "Who opened your mind?" "I don't know." Elijah touched 2 fingers to Daniel's forehead. Daniel screamed. I flinched hard enough to pull at my bandage. Images burst through the air above him. Not solid, not smoke. Something between memory and nightmare. A corridor. A woman's gloved hand. A whisper. A blade wrapped in black cloth. Daniel's own face blanking out as something slid behind his eyes. Then 2 vampires appeared in the memory. 1 male, 1 female. Both hooded. One voice said, "Strike the human, not the heart. The arm will do. Let the dead blood speak before the king can." The image shattered. Daniel collapsed forward, sobbing. Elijah rose. For a moment I thought he would kill him. Instead, he said, "He was compelled. Take him to the upper staff quarters. Morella will see that his mind is repaired." Daniel looked up, stunned. So was I. Cassian hauled him away, but not roughly. Elijah faced the court. "Bring me Veros and Elian." 2 vampires at the back tried to run. They made it 3 steps. Elijah vanished. A heartbeat later, one slammed into the floor hard enough to crack stone. The other hit the base of the dais with a wet crunch that made several vampires bow their heads. Elijah reappeared between them, not breathing hard, not rumpled, not human in any possible sense. He looked down at the male vampire first. "Did you believe dead blood would hide your scent from me?" The vampire spat black-red blood onto the floor. "She weakens the throne." "No," Elijah said. "You weakened your argument when you failed." Then he placed one hand on the vampire's chest. No flourish, no speech. The vampire convulsed once. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His body collapsed inward, skin graying, veins blackening, until ash spilled between Elijah's fingers and scattered across the stone. I stopped breathing. Elijah turned to the second vampire. She was crawling backward, one leg bent wrong. "Mercy! You used a compelled human to strike my wife with dead blood. She is not one of us." Elijah crouched. "That was your mistake." I looked away before he finished. Not because I wanted to protect her. Because I needed to protect some fragile part of myself that still believed monsters were supposed to look like monsters when they killed. Elijah did not. He looked like judgment. When it was over, the court stood in absolute silence. Then slowly heads bowed. Not the feverish awe from the vault. This was different. He had spared the helpless and destroyed the guilty, and the people watching understood the distinction. A young servant near the wall pressed a hand over her mouth, crying quietly in relief. An older vampire bowed so low his forehead nearly touched the floor. "My king," he whispered. Not fear, gratitude. That complicated things in a way I did not appreciate. Elijah ordered the lower cells opened, suspects questioned, feeding rites suspended for anyone connected to Veros or Elian, and every servant examined for compulsion. He did it all without raising his voice, without hesitation, without asking anyone if they agreed. He was terrifying. He was also not careless. By the time he finally turned back to me, my arm throbbed, and the bond had begun to flicker again, faint as a match in rain. "Elijah," Morella said softly from beside me. I followed her gaze. His right hand was curled at his side. Blood darkened his sleeve. A deep slice ran from his wrist into his palm, probably from the dead blood blade when he had caught it. It should have healed. I knew enough about vampires now to know that. It had not. The edges of the wound were still open, and beneath his fingernails, clinging to the skin like powder, was ash. My stomach tightened. "Elijah," I said, "your hand." He closed his fist. "It is nothing. People with nothing don't usually bleed on expensive floors." "It is not my blood." "Liar." The word escaped before I could soften it. He looked at me, and the flickering bond gave one sudden pulse. Pain rushed through it. Not mine. His. Smoke. Pressure. Something cracking in the dark. Then it vanished as quickly as it came. Morella's face changed. She had felt something, or seen enough to know what I had felt. "My king," she said too carefully, "you should allow me to—" "No." "But the wound." I said no. That shut her up. It did not shut me up. What are you hiding? Elijah's gaze moved to the court, then back to me. Not here. Fantastic. Another private nightmare. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. The dead blood was not meant only to kill you. It was meant to interrupt the bond long enough to challenge what the morning star made. Why would anyone care this much about a bond neither of us asked for? Because the relic is law. Your law. Older than me. I laughed once, sharp and exhausted. Of course it is. Everything down here is older than common sense. His mouth did not move. The morning star should have rejected you, he said. That landed like a slap. I sat back. Excuse me? It accepts royal blood. Bound blood. Blood already tied to my line by oath, conquest, or inheritance. His gaze dropped briefly to the mark on my wrist. It has never chosen a human stranger. Maybe your haunted diamond has taste. Anna. No, don't Anna me like I'm being unreasonable. I was dragged into this because someone gave me codes, erased the evidence, and put me in front of your magic marriage rock. Now people are trying to cut me open. Your doctor looks like she's about to faint, which is impressive for a corpse. And you are bleeding ash. Morella went still. Elijah's face closed. There it was. Not confirmation. Worse. Recognition. I stood, ignoring the dizzy tilt of the room. Tell me what that means. He did not answer. Elijah. The mark around his wrist glowed beneath his bloody sleeve. For the first time, he looked away from me. You were never supposed to become my bride.
I should have known silence would not last. In my world, silence was never peace. It was only the space between one blade leaving its sheath and another finding flesh. By the second night after the dead blood attack, the estate had settled into something too controlled to be trusted. The corridors were sealed. The lower court had been stripped of movement. Cassian had doubled the guard around the east wing. Morella had tested every servant for compulsion until even the walls seemed tired of secrets. And Anna hated all of it. I felt that through the bond in sharp little pulses. Irritation, exhaustion, fear she refused to name, pain from the cut on her arm. She was in her chambers, meant to be resting. Cassian stood outside her door. 2 guards held the western stairs. Another watched the service passage she had used once, and would absolutely try to use again if given 10 unsupervised minutes. I was in the council chamber listening to Lord Severin explain why a human queen made the throne vulnerable, as if I had somehow missed the repeated attempts to spill her blood across my floors. She must be moved from the royal wing, Severin said. For her safety, of course. Of course, I said. His old eyes narrowed. The court murmurs. The court breathes because I permit it. Lucien, lounging near the hearth with a glass of blood he had no need to drink in my presence, smiled into the rim. Severin ignored him. A human cannot be guarded as one of us. She sleeps too deeply, bleeds too easily. Her instincts are poor. Her instincts, I said, found a conspiracy your elders overlooked. Severin's mouth tightened. Lucien lifted one finger. Technically, she found it by being stabbed. I looked at him. He lowered the finger. Poor timing. Continue. A faint tremor moved through my right hand. I closed it before either of them saw. The wound from the dead blood blade had sealed over mostly. Not enough. Beneath the skin, the ashing pressed like a slow fire in bone. It had been worse since the relic. Worse since Anna's blood touched mine. Worse since I had tasted panic through the bond and understood, with humiliating clarity, that I could no longer treat her as a political accident. She was not only a weakness, she was becoming a want. That was far more dangerous. Severin began speaking again. If the morning star has aired, the bond screamed, not pulsed. not warmed, screamed. Anna's terror ripped through me so violently, the council chamber vanished. For one instant, I felt what she felt. Weight pinning her down, a hand over her mouth, cold breath against her throat, teeth. My glass shattered across the room before I knew I had moved. Lucien came upright. Elijah. I was already gone. The estate blurred into darkness and stone. I tore through the halls too quickly for the guards to see me pass. Cassian was no longer outside her door. The lock had been broken from the inside, not forced, manipulated by someone who knew the old mechanisms. Blood scented the air. Anna's blood. Then another scent beneath it. Rogue hunger. I entered the room without sound. 3 vampires were on her bed. One held her wrists above her head. Another pinned her legs beneath his weight. The third had his mouth at her throat. Anna's eyes found mine over the hand clamped across her mouth. Wide, furious, terrified, alive. Something ancient and absolute went quiet inside me. Not rage. Rage was noisy. Rage burned hot and foolish. This was older. This was law before language. The vampire at her throat lifted his head. Anna's blood shone on his mouth. He tried to speak. I let the room freeze around him. The fire stopped moving in the hearth. Rain suspended against the glass. The curtain hung mid-sway. Even Anna's breath caught in the spell, her chest frozen beneath the torn edge of her shirt. Only the rogue vampires and I remained free. They understood then, not fully. Enough. The one at her wrists released her too late. The one between her legs scrambled backward too late. The one with her blood on his tongue touched his mouth, as if surprised by what he had done. I looked at Anna first. Her skin was warm with fear. Her throat was marked by 2 punctures, red and wet. Her eyes were open. She was breathing again, as I loosened the spell from her body, but held the rest of the room in my grip. I did not touch her, not yet. I could not trust my hands. Then I turned to them. You fed from my wife. No one answered. The smallest of them, a young vampire with silver rings through one ear, trembled so hard his bones clicked. I asked you a question. The one with Anna's blood on his mouth dropped to his knees. My king, we meant no death, only a taste. We only wanted... I crossed the room and seized him by the throat. His words stopped. Wanted, I repeated. He clawed at my wrist. The ashing flared in my hand, cracking beneath the skin. Pain opened bright and useless. I welcomed it. Pain kept me precise. You entered the royal wing, I said. You broke a ward sealed by my blood. You put your mouth on her throat while she fought you. His eyes bulged. I leaned closer. Do not insult me by calling that hunger. The vampire at the foot of the bed bolted. Cassian appeared in the doorway at the same moment, sword drawn, face hard with murder. He took one step. Do not, I said. He stopped. The fleeing vampire made it halfway across the sitting room before I dragged him back with a thought. His body slammed into the ceiling first, then the floor. Bones broke. He howled. Anna flinched. That sound reached me when nothing else would have. I looked back at her. She had pushed herself upright against the headboard. One hand pressed to her throat. Blood ran between her fingers. Her shirt hung torn at the shoulder. Her hair was mussed from the struggle. Her expression locked between shock and rage. She was looking at me, as though she no longer knew which danger in the room would kill her first. Good. She should know. I was the greater one. Morella, I said. Cassian turned his head. Already sent for. Secure the halls. My king. Now. He vanished with the guards gathering behind him. The vampire in my grip choked out, "She is human." I looked at him again. He had chosen poorly. A murmur rose from the doorway. Court members had followed the commotion. Servants, guards, 2 elders. Lucien in the back with all humor gone from his face. They saw Anna bleeding. They saw the 3 rogues. They saw me. Let them. "She is queen," I said. Then I broke the first vampire's jaw with my thumb and forced him to kneel beside the bed. Not dead. Not yet. The second tried to crawl away with his shattered leg dragging behind him. I pinned him with pressure alone until his body flattened to the floor. The third wept. That disgusted me most. I released the spell, holding the room still. Rain struck the windows all at once. The fire snapped. Anna inhaled sharply, and the sound went through me like a blade. Morella entered with her black case and stopped only long enough to assess who was dying and who was permitted to continue. "Anna first," I said. She went to the bed. Anna stiffened when Morella reached for her. Morella paused. "May I?" Anna's throat worked. "Yes." The word nearly undid me. She should not have needed to grant permission for anyone to touch a wound made by violence. She should not have been in my estate with blood on her neck and terror in her pulse. She should have been anywhere else, upstairs, human, alive in the plain, brutal world she understood, complaining about rent, drinking coffee, calling me something with more murder in it. Not here. Not bleeding because my crown made her desirable to monsters. Morella cleaned the bite. Not deep enough to turn her. Not enough blood loss to endanger her life. The court exhaled. I did not. Anna's eyes stayed on me over Morella's shoulder. "What are you going to do to them?" she asked. Her voice was rough, angry, still hers. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you ask me to be merciful." The room went utterly still. Anna stared at me. The rogues stared at her. So did the court. I had never offered such a thing in front of them. Not to an elder. Not to a lover. Not to anyone who stood between my law and my punishment. Anna understood enough to hate the weight of it. Her fingers tightened in the blanket. "Don't put that on me. You are the injured party." "I'm the person who woke up being chewed on. I'm not your judge." "No," I said quietly. "You are my wife." Something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe. Fury. Something worse than both. "I didn't ask to be." "I know." The answer cost me more than it should have. The vampire kneeling nearest the bed began sobbing again. "Please, Your Majesty, please. We did not mean—" Anna's face hardened. "Don't," she said. The vampire went silent. She looked at him, and there was nothing soft in her expression now. "You don't get to beg me after putting your hands on me." The bond between us pulsed once, vicious and red. Mine, hers, I could no longer tell. I turned away before she could see what that did to me. "Take them to the lower hall," I told Cassian, who had returned with blood on his sleeve that was not his own. "Summon the court." Anna pushed herself higher. "Elijah!" I stopped. She swallowed, and I saw the effort it took. "I don't want to watch." "You will not." Her gaze dropped to my hands. They were steady now. That seemed to frighten her more. The lower hall had witnessed executions before. It had never seen me like this. I did not make a spectacle. Spectacle belonged to weak kings who needed sound to convince others of power. I made examples. The first rogue lost his fangs before the court. The second lost the hands that had pinned her legs. The third, the one who had tasted her throat, begged until I removed his voice. Then I ended them. By law, I could have given them to the sun. I did not have that patience. When it was done, the silence of the court was not simple fear. It was horror. Even those loyal to me looked away from the ash staining the black stone. Good. Let them be horrified. Let every creature beneath my roof understand that Anna Annabel was not a cup, not a curiosity, not a political weakness to be sampled in the dark. She was under my protection, and whatever else the morning star had made of us, that was not symbolic. When I returned to her chambers, the room had been cleaned, the sheets changed, the fire rebuilt. Morella was gone. 2 guards stood in the hall, and Cassian waited outside the door, like a blade given human shape. "She is awake," he said. "I know." His gaze lowered to my hand. Ash had gathered beneath the nail of my thumb. I closed my fist. "Say nothing." Cassian bowed his head. "My king." Inside, Anna sat against the pillows in a robe too large for her, bandage stark against her throat. She looked smaller in the enormous bed, which angered me irrationally. Her eyes followed me as I entered. "You killed them?" "Yes." She nodded once, as if she had expected no other answer. "Did it help?" "No." That surprised her. I stayed near the foot of the bed, far enough not to crowd her, close enough to hear the uneven rhythm of her heart. "You can sit," she said after a moment. "I'm not going to throw anything. I do not believe you." Her mouth twitched, then trembled. She looked away quickly. I moved to the chair beside the bed and sat. For a while, neither of us spoke. The rain filled the room. The bond remained raw between us, stripped of its usual heat, pulsing with the memory of her fear. Finally, she said, "You didn't touch me?" "No." "After? When you came in?" "I did not know whether you would want me to." Her eyes returned to mine. That mattered to her. I felt it before I understood it. "You looked scared," she said. "I was angry." "No." Her voice softened. "You were scared." I looked toward the window. Dawn would come in a few hours, gray and dull over Portland. Harmless to me, in the way poison became harmless when it had already entered the blood. "Why?" she asked. I said nothing. "Elijah." My name in her mouth was becoming intolerable. She touched the edge of her bandage, careful not to press. "Why did losing me frighten you so badly?" "Because I had ruled through plague, war, betrayal, fire, and centuries of graves, and none of it had moved me the way her terror had. Because when the bond screamed, something in me answered before my crown did. Because for one impossible moment, I had seen a world where she was gone, and it had looked like every death I had accepted, finally turning its face toward me. I stood. Her expression closed. "Of course. Rest. That's not an answer." "No." "Do you ever get tired of doing that? Just walking away when things get honest?" I looked at her then. "Yes." The word left me before I could stop it. Anna went still. So did I. There were a dozen things I could have said. None of them safe. None of them true enough. So I left. In the corridor, my right hand began to tremble. I braced it against the wall, jaw locked, as pain split through my palm and up my arm. Black cracks burned under the skin, branching toward my wrist. For several seconds, I could not move. Ash slipped from beneath my sleeve and scattered across the floorboards just inside her door. A small sound came from behind me. I turned. Anna stood in the doorway, one hand at her bandaged throat, staring down at the gray dust by her bare feet. Then she lifted her eyes to mine. "Elijah," she whispered, "why is there ash on my floor?"
"Elijah," I whispered, staring at the ash scattered near my bare feet. "Why is there ash on my floor?" He looked down. For 1 second, his face did something strange. Not fear, not guilt. Something colder than both, as if I had opened a door he meant to keep sealed until the house burned down around it. Then the expression disappeared. "Old wards," he said. I stared at him. "Try again." His hand curled into a fist. The black sleeve slid lower, hiding his wrist. "Return to bed." "Do vampires take a class in not answering questions? Or is this just your natural gift?" Cassian appeared at the end of the hall, grim as a funeral invitation. Elijah did not look away from me. "Escort her inside." "You're bleeding ash," I said. "I am not bleeding." "That is the part you're choosing to focus on?" His jaw tightened. For a moment, the bond pulsed between us. Not the clean, hot thread I had started to recognize. This was jagged. Smoke and hunger and something deep enough to swallow sound. Then Elijah stepped back. "Sleep, Anna." He vanished before I could say anything else. I stood there in the doorway, bandaged tight at my throat, staring at the place he had been. Cassian cleared his throat. I looked at him. "If you tell me to sleep, I'm going to become difficult. You are already difficult." "Correct. Imagine worse." His mouth did not move, but his eyes almost did. "Inside." I went, because my legs were shaking, and because the ash was still on the floor, like proof of a crime nobody would name. By morning, the estate had changed again. There were more guards, more locked doors, more vampires lowering their eyes when I passed, as if the bite marks on my throat had made me sacred or contagious. Cassian walked beside me everywhere, close enough to catch me if I fainted, and far enough away to pretend he was not worried. I hated that I noticed. Morella came to change my bandage after breakfast. She cleaned the punctures with something that smelled like wintergreen and smoke, her hands precise, her face unreadable. "Is Elijah sick?" I asked. Her fingers paused for less than a heartbeat. Too long. "My king is old," she said. That was not my question. "He has endured injuries no younger vampire could survive." Also, not my question. Morella smoothed fresh gauze against my throat. "The ash you saw may have come from the dead blood weapon." It didn't. Her eyes lifted to mine. I saw the answer there before she hit it. "Morella, I serve the crown. I'm apparently wearing one, according to everyone who keeps trying to eat me." Her expression softened, but only slightly. "You serve beside the crown. That is not the same as being told every wound your husband carries." Husband? The word still felt like being shoved downstairs. "He's lying to me," I said. "Yes," Morella replied. That surprised me into silence. She closed her case. "But not every lie is meant to harm you." "Convenient thing for liars to believe." "Yes," she said quietly. "It is." Then she left before I could demand anything else. Cassian was worse. "Is he dying?" I asked him that afternoon while he walked me through a corridor lined with portraits of dead people who all looked rich, dangerous, and disappointed in my outfit. "No." "You answered too fast." "My duty is your safety. Your duty is apparently also avoiding eye contact when I ask good questions." He kept walking. "Cassian." "No," he said, sharper this time. "My duty is not to betray him." That shut me up. Not because I respected it, because I understood it. Lucian found me in the library near dusk, sitting cross-legged in an armchair with 3 ancient books open, and no idea what language 2 of them were written in. "You look like scholarship has wronged you," he said. "Scholarship is gatekeeping." He leaned over the back of the chair, glanced at the book in my lap, and winced. "That one is mostly tax law." I slammed it shut. "Of course it is. Hell has footnotes." Lucian laughed softly, looking for answers. I'm looking for one person in this house who doesn't treat the truth like a family heirloom. Dangerous hobby. Do you know why Elijah leaves ash behind? The humor faded from his face. There it was again. That pause. That careful little grave dug between a question and the lie chosen to bury it. Lucian straightened. Some kings burn quietly. That is not an answer. No, he agreed, but it is more than I should have said. He turned to leave, then stopped beside the shelves. If you want old truths, don't read what the court preserves. Look at what it hides. What does that mean? He smiled without warmth. Usually, that I should stop helping before someone removes my tongue. He left me with tax law and dread. Across the hall, Jovia watched from beneath a carved archway. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her gaze dropped to the bandage at my throat, then to my wrist, where the blood mark had begun to glow faintly under my sleeve. Her expression tightened into something elegant and vicious. I lifted my hand and wiggled my fingers at her. Her mouth curved. It was not a smile. That night, the bond changed. I woke with hunger clawing through my stomach. Not mine. Mine was familiar. Mine tasted like skipped meals and cheap noodles, and deciding whether coffee counted as dinner. This was different. This was deep and metallic, a thirst that lived in the bones and dragged teeth across the inside of my thoughts. I sat up in bed, breathing hard. "Elijah," I whispered. Pain answered, a flash of him standing in the lower court, shadows bending around his hands, vampires kneeling, wards sealing with red light. His power poured out like a storm while something inside him cracked under the strain. Then nothing. I got out of bed. Cashin was not outside my door, which either meant I was about to be murdered, or Elijah had done something stupid enough to pull even his guard captain away. I followed the bond. It dragged me through the east wing, down a narrow stair, and into a private study, lit by one dying fire. Elijah stood with both hands braced on a black desk, head bowed, shoulders rigid. There were 3 untouched crystal glasses beside him. Blood. He had not drunk any of them. "Elijah, leave." His voice was wrong, too rough, too low. I stopped near the door. "You're starving." I said, "Leave." "You say a lot of things." He lifted his head. His eyes were fully red, fangs pressed behind his parted mouth. The sight should have terrified me. It did. But under the fear was something worse. Heat. A dark, answering pull low in my body that made my cunt clench around nothing. I hated the honesty of it. His gaze snapped to my throat, then to my wrist, then away. "No," he said. "I didn't offer yet." "You were about to." "You don't know that." "I know your heartbeat." The word slid over my skin. I swallowed. "Then you know I'm scared." "Yes. And still here." His hands tightened on the desk until the wood groaned. "Anna. I'm not one of your servants. I'm not court property. I'm not a cup with a crown." I stepped closer. If I offer, it's because I choose to. The bond pulsed. He closed his eyes as if the words hurt him. "You do not understand what your blood does." "Then explain." "I cannot." "Won't." His eyes opened. "Both." "Fine." I rolled up my sleeve and held out my wrist. He stared at it like I had offered him a blade. "No. You are shaking. I can control it. You look like you're one bad smell away from eating the furniture." Despite everything, his mouth twitched. Barely. Then it was gone. "I could hurt you." "You could," I said. "So don't." The room went still. Slowly, Elijah came around the desk. Every step looked restrained, deliberate, like he was approaching something breakable and holy and dangerous. He stopped in front of me, close enough that the cold of him slipped beneath my robe. "Tell me to stop," he said. "I will. Not after. The moment you want me to." I said I will. His fingers closed around my wrist. Gentle. That almost undid me. He lowered his mouth, but paused before his fangs touched skin. His eyes flicked up to mine, asking without words. I nodded. The bite hurt. A sharp, clean puncture that stole my breath. Then his mouth sealed over the wound, and pain melted into something hot and terrible. Pleasure spread up my arm, across my chest, down my spine. My knees weakened. Elijah caught my waist with his free hand, careful even in hunger, his grip hard enough to steady but not trap. I grabbed his shoulder. "Stay with me," I whispered. He shuddered. The bond opened. His hunger crashed through me. Not mindless, not cruel. Desperate, ancient, exhausted. I felt centuries of restraint like iron around his throat. Felt how badly he wanted to take more and how violently he refused himself. "Look at me," I said. His eyes lifted while his mouth stayed on my wrist. Jesus, there was no way to be sane with him looking at me like that. "You're not disappearing," I told him, voice shaking. "You don't get to turn into some tragic vampire statue on me." A rough sound broke from him, almost a laugh, almost pain. His throat worked as he swallowed. Once, twice, 3 times. The room blurred at the edges. "Elijah." He stopped instantly. Not slowly. Not after one more taste. Instantly. He pulled away, breathing hard, though he did not need to breathe. Blood stained his mouth, dark and intimate. He pressed his thumb over the wound, and something in his saliva, or his power, closed the punctures to a tender ache. "You stopped," I said, dizzy. "You told me to." That should not have mattered as much as it did. He still held my wrist. I lifted my other hand and, without thinking, placed it against his chest. There was nothing beneath my palm. Then one beat, hard, impossible. Elijah went utterly still. The bond flared red. I felt it inside my own ribs, as if my heart had answered his. "What was that?" I whispered. His face had gone blank with shock. "Elijah." He released me and stepped back. "No. That was your heart. No. Liar." He looked toward the fire, jaw tight, blood still on his lower lip. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked less like a king and more like a man standing at the edge of a grave that had just spoken. "You should return to your room," he said. Of course I should. I left before I said something stupid, or touched him again. Sleep did not come. The bond hummed under my skin, warmer now, deeper. I wrapped my robe tighter and wandered because apparently almost dying multiple times had taught me nothing. Lucian's words followed me. "Look at what it hides." The portrait gallery was empty, lit by low blue flames. Faces watched me from gilded frames. Vampires in armor, vampires in gowns. Vampires holding crowns and swords and goblets of blood like family props. At the end of the hall hung a covered painting. The cloth was old, dusty, forgotten on purpose. I pulled it down. Elijah stared back at me. Not modern Elijah in black suits and controlled fury. This Elijah wore dark armor, one hand resting on the hilt of a sword, his face exactly the same as it was now. Beautiful, merciless, young and ancient at once. Behind him, painted in the sky, was a black and silver star. The morning star. My wrist burned. I reached for the frame and felt something give beneath my fingers. The portrait swung outward on hidden hinges. Behind it, carved into the wall, was the same symbol. And beneath the symbol, written in dark red script, were the words, "The sun-crowned king shall die by the bride who wakes his heart."
The prophecy found her before I did. Anna stood in the portrait gallery, with dust on her fingers, and my past opened behind a frame, reading words that should have remained buried beneath centuries of blood and plaster. The sun-crowned king shall die by the bride who wakes his heart. The mark around my wrist burned. She did not turn when I entered. You have terrible taste in wall decor. I stopped 3 paces behind her. That was sealed. Badly. It was sealed by blood. Then your blood needs a locksmith. Even then, with danger carved into the wall between us, her voice did something to me. It caught at the edge of my control and pulled. I looked at the portrait instead of her. Armor, sword, the morning star painted above my shoulder like a black wound in the sky. I remembered the day it had been made. I remembered the woman who ordered it hidden. I remembered her warning me that time did not erase blood. It only taught it patience. Anna finally faced me. Are you going to explain this? Or should I start making guesses? Because mine are rarely flattering. It is an old superstition. Bullshit. Her fear came through the bond quietly, not the sharp panic of the bite, not the bright sting of anger. This fear sat deeper. It had claws. You believe a painting over a king? I asked. I believe people hide things because they don't want them found. Her gaze dropped to my chest, as if she could see through cloth and bone to the impossible beat she had felt. Am I supposed to kill you? No. Do you know that? Or are you just saying no because it's your favorite hobby? I should have ordered her back to her chambers. I should have destroyed the carving, removed the memory from the wall, found whoever had loosened the seals. Instead, I looked at her and understood with inconvenient clarity that she cared what the answer was. That should have pleased me. It terrified me. No prophecy has ever managed to kill me, I said. Anna stepped closer. That is not the same thing as being safe. No, I admitted. It is not. The honesty cost too much. I saw her hear it, saw her anger falter beneath something softer, more dangerous. Then she lifted her chin. You're still an asshole. Relief nearly made me laugh. Go to bed, Anna. Knock before appearing in my nightmares, Dracula. I told you he was Romanian. And yet somehow, you're still the problem. She left with the last word, as she often tried to do. As she was beginning to do more often than I allowed anyone else. The days that followed rearranged themselves around her. Anna did not know she was falling. I knew because she fought me less about the guards and more about the principle of guards. She still argued when I appeared in rooms without knocking, but now she threw pillows instead of cutlery. She began saving the strongest coffee for herself and once placed a second cup near my hand before remembering I did not drink it. I forgot you're dead, she said. So did my enemies, briefly. Her mouth curved before she could stop it. That small, unwilling smile stayed with me longer than blood. In court, she chose me before she understood what the choice meant. Lord Severin stood before the throne with 3 elders at his back, and outrage dressed as concern. The attacks upon the human prove what many feared, he said. Her presence invites disorder. The royal wing has been breached twice. Human servants have been compromised. Young vampires have been tempted beyond reason. Anna sat beside me, not because tradition allowed it, but because she had dragged the chair there herself and told Cassian, if anybody wants to complain, they can file a ticket with Vampire HR. I had not made her move it back. That alone had nearly caused a constitutional crisis. Severin continued. For her own safety, she should be confined below the court. The human staff dismissed. Those who served near her chambers should be examined under pain. Under pain? Anna repeated. Severin turned his ancient stare on her. It is a reliable instrument. It's also what lazy men use when they don't know how to ask better questions. A murmur spread through the hall. Cassian's expression did not change, but I heard the smallest shift of his breath. Severin's eyes narrowed. You presume much. She is queen, I said. The title cut the room cleanly in two. Anna glanced at me. Jovia, standing near the eastern pillars, went very still. Severin bowed his head with exquisite reluctance. Then perhaps Her Majesty can explain why every incident since her arrival has involved human weakness. Anna leaned forward. Gladly. I should have stopped her. Instead, I rested one hand on the arm of the throne and waited. The servant who stabbed me was compelled, she said. Elijah spared him. Your solution is to hurt more servants because that's easier than admitting someone with power used them. A few vampires looked away. Good. And the rogues who came into my room, she continued. They didn't wander in because I smelled delicious. Lucian murmured from the wall. For the record, that remains disputed. I looked at him. He smiled and examined his sleeve. Anna ignored him. They knew exactly which panel opened behind my mirror. They knew Cassian's rotation. They knew which ward had been reset after my escape attempt. Severin's mouth hardened. Speculation. No. Housekeeping. The court fell silent. Anna looked at Cassian. When you sealed the service passage after I used it, what did you use? Wax over the interior latch, he said. Stamped with my ring. And when I checked it the morning after the attack, the wax had been replaced, not broken. Replaced. She lifted her hand before Severin could speak. Different smell. Less smoke, more resin. Also, whoever did it cleaned the hinge with lemon oil. Several vampires stared at her, as if she had begun reciting prophecy in a grocery store. Anna shrugged. I used to clean offices at 2 a.m. for rich people who thought toilets scrubbed themselves. Dust tells on everybody. My gaze moved to Damas, keeper of the internal thresholds. His left hand twitched. Anna saw it too. Funny thing, she said. Damas walked past me yesterday smelling like lemon oil. Damas hissed. I oversee every passage in this estate. Then you should know better than to lie near someone with allergies. The first real ripple of amusement moved through the court before fear smothered it. I stood. Damas dropped to one knee. My king, I would never... No, I said. You would. His expression cracked. There it was. Not guilt, calculation. Severin stepped back a fraction. I saw that too. Normally, I would have taken Damas apart in front of them and read the truth from whatever remained. Anna's hand touched my sleeve. A light contact. Almost nothing. It stopped me more effectively than chains. Don't kill him yet, she said quietly. He knows who told him. The court heard her. So did Jovia. So did I. Every instinct in me rejected being stayed before my own throne. But Anna's fingers remained on my sleeve, warm and certain, and for reasons I did not care to examine, I obeyed. Cassian, I said, eyes on Damas. Take him alive. Damas was dragged out screaming. Anna exhaled and withdrew her hand. I looked at her then. Not as a complication. Not as law made flesh by a relic neither of us trusted. As mine, yes, but also as herself. Sharp, bruised, brave beyond sense. Tenderness moved through me before I could cage it. Across the hall, Jovia saw. Something broke in her face so quickly, another man might have missed it. I did not. That night, Anna came to my chambers without Cassian. You let me speak, she said. I stood by the windows, Portland rain turning the glass silver black. You are correct. Don't sound so offended. I am not offended. You are deeply offended by how useful I was. I turned. She wore a dark robe belted at the waist, her hair loose around her shoulders, the bandage at her throat smaller now. The mark on her wrist glowed faintly. Desire moved through me, immediate and unwelcome. So did the ashing, deeper under the ribs, responding to the heat of her blood in the room. You should not be here alone, I said. I know. And yet I'm tired of everyone deciding what's dangerous for me. I went still. She crossed the room slowly, giving me time to stop her. I did not. The bond is not simple, I said. It can confuse need with choice. Anna stopped before me. Then listened carefully. Her hand rose to my chest, exactly where my heart had beaten once. I choose this. The words entered me like a wound. Anna, if you say my name like a warning one more time, I'm going to scream. You should. Maybe later. Then she kissed me. I had lived 7 centuries and still nearly lost myself to that first press of her mouth. She was warm, angry, alive. Her hands slid into my hair, holding me there, as if I were the one who might run. I caught her waist. Tell me to stop. No. Tell me if... Elijah. Her voice broke around my name, and I was done pretending restraint was distance. I lifted her onto the table near the window. Papers scattered. She laughed against my mouth, breathless and startled, and the sound went straight through every dead thing in me. This is probably a historic desk, she said. It has survived worse. Has it? No. She kissed me again, harder. I opened her robe with care I did not feel. Her skin was hot beneath my hands. Her thighs parted around me, and the scent of her arousal struck my hunger, like a match thrown into oil. I could hear the rush of blood between her legs, feel the bond answer low in my own body. I lowered my mouth to her breast. She inhaled sharply, fingers tightening in my hair. God. No, I said against her skin. She gave a shaky laugh. Still arrogant. Yes. I touched her slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. When my fingers slid between her thighs, she was wet, her cunt soft and slick against my hand. Her head tipped back, mouth parting, and the sight of her undone by my touch nearly destroyed what remained of my patience. Elijah, she whispered. I looked at her. I want you. Not the bond, not the crown, not the relic. Her. I entered her slowly, a jaw clenched against the brutal pleasure of heat closing around my cock. She gasped, nails digging into my shoulders, and I went still until her body softened around me. Okay? I asked. She opened her eyes. If you stop now, I will haunt you. A laugh tore out of me before I could bury it. Then I moved. The bond flared. Her pleasure struck mine and came back doubled, red and gold and impossible. She clung to me as I thrust into her, each breath breaking rougher than the last. I kept one hand at the back of her neck, not holding her down, only holding her with me. Stay, I thought, though I did not say it. As if she heard, Anna pressed her forehead to mine. I'm here. That was the moment I knew I was lost. Afterward, she lay against me in her bed, warm and heavy with sleep she refused to surrender to. I had carried her there because she had muttered something about royal aftercare and not walking on legs that had betrayed her. I should have left. Instead, I stayed. Her fingers circled my wrist. Feed. No. I wasn't asking if you had dinner plans. You have given enough. I decide that. My throat burned. She lifted her wrist, not her throat, not where the others had hurt her. The trust of that nearly brought me to my knees. I kissed the inside of her wrist before I bit. She sighed this time, not afraid. Her fingers slid into my hair, holding me close as I drank. I took little. Less than I wanted. More than I should have allowed. Her blood warmed the dead places. For a moment, I almost believed in mercy. Then her hand moved to my chest. I caught it too quickly. Too sharply. Anna went still. Shame cut through the hunger. I released her at once. Forgive me. Her gaze lowered to the place below my collarbone, where the skin had split in a thin, ember-dark line. You're colder, she said. It is nothing. Her expression hardened. You know, for a 700-year-old king, you lie like a man with overdue rent. I pulled my shirt closed. Sleep. Elijah. I left before her voice could make a coward of me. The corridor outside her chamber was empty. I made it 12 steps before the pain struck. My knees hit the floor. Smoke tore up my throat, and I coughed into my hand, black ash spilling across my palm in a soft, soundless heap. For several seconds, I could not rise. Then I felt her. Jovia stood at the end of the hall, beautiful and motionless in the blue dark. Her gaze moved from the ash in my hand to Anna's closed door, and this time, when something broke in her face, it did not heal.
Elijah started disappearing the morning after he made me come on a historic desk, which felt rude, not the sex. The sex had been devastating in a way I was still trying not to think about too directly, because there were only so many personal crises a woman could schedule before breakfast. But the vanishing afterward? The coldness? The way he slipped out of my bed before dawn and left nothing behind but a dying fire and the ache of his bite at my wrist? That was rude. By noon, he was occupied. By dusk, he was in council. By the next night, he had mastered the ancient royal art of being technically in the same building, while feeling farther away than anyone I had ever lost. The bond knew. I knew. Worse, he knew I knew. At court, he called me Her Majesty. Not Anna, not wife, not even human problem, which I had started to miss on principle. He sat on that black throne like something carved out of violence, listening to Lord Severin complain about Damas being held without formal elder review. I stood beside him because sitting made me feel too much like decoration, and I refused to become furniture in a room full of predators. Elijah, I said quietly when Severin finished whining. His eyes flicked to me. My queen. The title landed wrong. Too smooth, too public. I smiled with all my teeth. How formal. Should I curtsy, or would that make everyone too excited? Lucian coughed into his fist. Severin looked pained. Elijah did not smile. That hurt more than it should have. We will speak later, he said. Will we? His gaze sharpened just for a second. There he was, the man beneath the crown, the monster who had laughed against my mouth and asked if I was all right before moving inside me. Then he shut the door in his face. Yes, he said. Later. Later became never. He stopped coming to my room, stopped appearing in doorways like an attractive threat, stopped feeding for me, even when the bond dragged his hunger through my sleep until I woke sweating, fingers clenched in the sheets, tasting metal in the back of my throat. He was starving himself again. I found him on the third night in the conservatory, standing among poisonous flowers under a glass ceiling streaked with rain. Moonlight silvered the leaves. The whole room smelled green and wet and expensive. He did not turn when I entered. You're avoiding me, I said. No. You're lying with your back. Impressive range. I have duties. You had duties before you were inside me. His shoulders went still. Good. At least one of us was alive in this conversation. I came closer, stopping just beyond reach because I still had some pride left, though it was limping badly. If you regret it, say that. He turned then. His face gave me nothing. That was the worst part. Elijah angry, I could handle. Elijah arrogant, murderous, impossible? Fine. I had met men with worse personalities and fewer castles, but this calm distance made something in my chest fold in on itself. I do not regret you, he said. You, not it. I hated how quickly my body reached for that scrap. Then what is this? Control. I laughed once. Of course it is. You are safer when there is distance between us. I wasn't asking for a safety manual. No, he said. You were asking for an answer you are not prepared to hear. My mouth went dry. The bond pulsed, dark and uneven. Underneath his restraint, something hurt. Not emotionally, physically, deep, hidden. A pain he had wrapped in so much command it almost looked like silence. I stepped closer. He stepped back. That tiny retreat gutted me. Wow, I whispered. Message received. His eyes changed. Anna, no, don't. I lifted a hand. You do not get to say my name like you care, and then treat me like a liability with nice sheets. I am trying to protect you. That excuse is getting tired. His jaw tightened. So am I. The words were too quiet. Too honest. Before I could answer, he vanished. I stood alone in the conservatory with rain ticking against the glass and fury burning behind my eyes. I did not cry. I had done enough crying in hospital parking lots and funeral homes, and my car with the engine off because gas was too expensive to waste on grief. I knew this feeling, the shape of someone leaving before they were gone, the careful distance, the missing details, the way people said I'm fine when death had already pulled up a chair. Maya had done that near the end. Smiled too much, slept too little. Told me not to worry while her hands shook around a paper cup of ginger tea. My stomach turned. No. Elijah was not Maya. Elijah was an ancient vampire king with the bedside manner of a weapon. He was not sick. He was not leaving. He was not allowed to become another name I could not say without bleeding inside. I found myself in the portrait gallery before I knew I had walked there. The covered frame was still uncovered. My hands went cold when I looked at the carved words behind it. The sun-crowned king shall die by the bride who wakes his heart. Still admiring your handiwork? Jovia's voice slid through the room like silk over a blade. I turned. She stood beneath Elijah's portrait, dressed in deep red, her hair pinned in elegant coils, her mouth curved as if she had been waiting years for this exact wound. Do you practice lurking? I asked, or is it genetic? I wondered how long it would take. For what? For him to grow tired of pretending. I looked back at the prophecy because it was easier than looking at her face. If you're here to be dramatic, take a number. This house is fully booked. Jovia drifted closer. She moved like she expected the floor to thank her. You think what happened between you was rare. My spine went rigid. There it was. The knife, polished and ready. He has taken lovers before, she said softly. Beautiful ones. Ancient ones. Men and women who understood his world, his hunger, his bed. They all believed they saw something no one else did. I forced myself to shrug. He's 700 years old. I assumed he wasn't waiting in a tower knitting scarves. Her smile sharpened. He desired them, used them, discarded them, survived them. Congratulations, you've discovered sex can be casual. Should I call a hotline? Jovia's eyes flashed. For one delicious second, I thought I had gotten under her skin. Then she stepped closer, lowering her voice. But you are not casual, are you? She whispered. That is what makes this so pathetic. I said nothing. You poor little thing. You think you have him. I think you need a hobby. He was ash before you ever touched him. The room seemed to lose sound. Rain blurred against the windows. Somewhere below, a door closed. My heartbeat went too loud, too fast. What did you say? Jovia's smile returned, slow and cruel. There it is. You're lying. Am I? Yes. Ask him why his hands shake after he saves you. She took another step. Ask him why wounds close slower than they should. Ask him why he coughs smoke when he thinks no one sees. My throat tightened, ash under his nails, the tremor in the hall. The crack beneath his collarbone, his skin colder against mine. No, I said. Jovia tilted her head. Ask him why he never stays beside you when morning comes. He's a vampire. And yet daylight does not burn him. Her gaze slid over my face, savoring every fracture. Did you think that made him blessed? Untouchable? The sun-crowned king? She leaned closer. Sunlight does not burn Elijah because it is already burning him from within. I took a step back. She followed. It has a name among those old enough to fear it. The ashing. His body has been turning to dust for years. You don't know what you're talking about. I have watched him hide it longer than you have known vampires exist. My hands curled into fists. I wanted to hit her. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to wake up in my shitty apartment with overdue bills and a car making death noises, before diamonds and blood marks, and men who made my heart feel like a trap. Jovia's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. Your blood woke what was dead in him. His heart, his hunger, his attachment. Her eyes dropped to my wrist. Every time he feeds from you, every time he feels for you, the curse burns faster. No. The prophecy was never about you stabbing him, a little queen. The bond gave a sudden violent pull. I gasped. Jovia noticed. Of course she did. It is happening now, isn't it? She asked. You can feel him. I could. Pain. Not hunger this time. Pain like heat beneath stone. Pain with smoke in it. Elijah, I breathed. Jovia smiled. Ask him what your blood is doing to him. The words hit harder than any hand. I turned toward the door. Jovia's voice followed me, soft as a funeral bell. Ask him then. But hurry. There may not be much of him left to answer. I ran. Down the portrait gallery, past gilded frames and dead royal eyes. Past two servants who froze when they saw my face. Past Lucian stepping out of an archway, his amusement disappearing so fast I barely recognized him. Anna? I did not stop. The bond screamed. Not like when I had been bitten. Worse. This was Elijah's pain dragging claws through my ribs, his control cracking open somewhere ahead of me. I took the stairs too fast, nearly slipped, caught the rail, kept going. Cassian appeared at the corridor's end. Anna, stop. Move. His expression shifted. What happened? Move, Cassian. No one enters the king's private chambers without... He's dying. The words tore out of me before I could soften them. Cassian went still. That was enough to answer. My stomach dropped through the floor. I shoved past him. This time, he let me. Elijah's doors stood at the end of the private hall, black wood carved with old symbols that seemed to shift when I looked at them too directly. The handles would not turn. Locked. Of course they were locked. Elijah! I slammed my fist against the door. Open it! Nothing. The bond convulsed inside me. I pressed my marked wrist to the carved lock. The blood mark flared hot enough to hurt. Don't you dare do this, I whispered. Not after making me care about you. Not after all your dramatic bullshit. Open the damn door. For one awful second, nothing happened. Then something inside the lock shuddered. A thin line of gray dust slipped beneath the door. I looked down. Ash was spilling onto my feet. The lock opened like it had been waiting for my panic. The carved symbols flared red beneath my wrist, bright enough to burn through skin and bone, and the doors shuddered inward. Cold air rolled over me first. Not a normal cold. Not winter. Not vampire body cold. grave cold. Ash spilled across the threshold in a soft gray drift. Elijah? My voice sounded wrong in his room. Too small. His private chambers were nothing like the rest of the estate. No velvet drama, no throne room arrogance. Just dark wood, books stacked in precise columns, a bed that looked barely used, and tall windows facing the rain-heavy Portland morning. The curtains were half open. Gray light pressed through the glass, and Elijah was on the floor beneath it. For a second, my mind rejected what my eyes saw. No, not him. Not Elijah Draven, vampire king, nightmare in an expensive suit. The man who appeared out of darkness like violence had learned manners. He was braced on one hand near the windows, his other arm wrapped across his ribs. His shirt hung open at the throat, and beneath it his skin was split with thin black cracks. They ran from his collarbone down his chest, branching like burned veins. Ember dark light glowed inside some of them, faint and terrible. Ash gathered under his fingers. Ash sifted from his sleeve. Ash dusted the floor around him like he was already becoming part of it. I couldn't move. He lifted his head. For the first time since I'd known him, Elijah didn't hide the pain. It was there in his eyes, in the tight pull of his mouth, in the way his body shook once, violently, before he forced it still. Anna, he said. The sound of my name nearly broke me. My hand slid from the doorframe. So, Jovia wasn't lying. His eyes closed. My throat tightened around the words, but they came anyway. You're actually dying. He tried to rise. Of course he did, because God forbid the man accept being on the floor like someone who needed help. His palm pressed down. His shoulder tightened. For one breath, I saw the king come back into his face. Then his arm gave out. He dropped hard onto one knee, ash scattering beneath him. I ran to him. Do not touch me, he said sharply. I ignored him and went down beside him. His head snapped toward me. Anna. Shut up! You do not know what the ashing will do through the bond. I don't care. I do. That stopped me for half a second. Only half. I reached for his face anyway. His skin was colder than anything living had a right to be. Colder than marble. Colder than rainwater left in the dark. Ash smeared beneath my thumb where I touched his jaw. He looked at my fingers, horror flickering across his expression. Not for himself. For me. That made me angrier. You knew, I whispered. He said nothing. You knew all this time. Yes, the word was quiet, clean, unforgivable. My chest started to hurt. Not through the bond. Mine. Human and ugly and familiar. Hospital waiting rooms, voicemails left unanswered because I already knew what they meant. Maya smiling too hard over ginger tea, pretending the tremor in her hand was nothing. Everyone left in pieces before they left for real. I had seen this shape before. I hated that I recognized it on him. How long? I asked. Years. How many? His gaze moved toward the window. Enough that counting became useless. I laughed once, but it came out broken. That is such an Elijah answer. I should have told you. Should have? My voice rose. You think? His jaw tightened as pain moved through him. One of the cracks near his throat widened, and a thin line of ash slid beneath his collar. I reached for him again, then stopped, because I didn't know where I could touch without hurting him. That made something inside me twist. You let me ask questions, I said. You let me feel crazy. You let Morella dodge me and Cassian shut down, and Lucian talk in riddles like the world's prettiest red flag. Lucian has always been that. Elijah. He looked at me then. No crown. No court. No monster. Just him, breaking apart in front of me. I am sorry, he said. Not like a king. Not like a man used to having his apologies accepted because fear made them ceremonial. Like someone who meant it and knew meaning it did not fix a damn thing. Why? I asked. Why didn't you tell me? His lips parted. For a moment, no sound came out. Then he said, "I did not tell you because I knew what it would do to you." The room went very still. Rain tapped against the glass. Somewhere under the floor, something old seemed to turn in its sleep. "That wasn't your choice to make," I said. His face tightened. "No." "Elijah." His voice went rough. "It was not." I hated him for agreeing. I wanted him to fight me, to be arrogant, to give me something solid to push against. Instead, he knelt there with ash on his hands and truth finally bleeding out of him, and I didn't know what to do with all the grief gathering in my ribs. "You let me fall in love with you." The words left me before I could stop them. They landed between us. I saw them hit him. His expression twisted, pain cutting deeper than the ashing had managed. "I tried not to," he said. My breath caught. That was not a denial. That was worse. My eyes burned. "That is not an apology." "I know. You pulled away because of this." "Yes." "You stopped feeding from me because of this." "Yes." "You made me think you regretted me." "No." The word came fast, sharp enough to cut. He reached for me, then stopped himself before his ash-stained fingers touched my skin. "Never." The bond flared. For 1 second I felt him. Not the hunger, not the power, the fear. It was vast and silent, buried under centuries of discipline. He had not feared dying. Not really. He had made a home inside the inevitability of it, arranged his kingdom around it, built walls around every soft thing so death would find nothing left to steal. Then I had walked in with a stolen diamond in a bleeding hand and ruined his carefully organized surrender. "You accepted it," I whispered. His eyes lowered. "Yes." "Before me." "Yes." "And now?" His mouth trembled once before he controlled it. "Now death has become inconvenient." I made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Elijah." His gaze lifted to mine. "Now," he said, quieter, "I am afraid of leaving you." That did it. That tore through whatever anger was holding me upright. I covered my mouth with one hand, but it didn't stop the sound that came out of me. I hated it, hated the helplessness of it, hated him for being beautiful and impossible and dying, hated myself for wanting to crawl inside this moment and physically hold him together. "You don't get to do this," I said. "You don't get to become another person I have to survive." "I know." "No, you don't." I shook my head. "You don't know what it's like to stand there while people you love disappear and still have to pay rent. You don't know what it's like to make jokes because if you stop being funny, you'll start screaming and never stop." His face shifted. The bond softened, aching. "I cannot promise you forever," he said. "Then promise me now." A shadow moved in his eyes. Before he could answer, the chamber doors slammed fully open. Cashin entered first, sword in hand. He stopped dead. Behind him, Morella crossed the threshold with her black medical case, and for the first time since I'd met her, her elegant composure cracked. "Oh," she whispered. That one tiny word terrified me more than any scream could have. Cashin looked at Elijah on the floor. His hand tightened around his sword until the leather creaked. "My king." "Seal the wing," Elijah said. His voice still had command in it. Barely. Cashin hesitated. "Now," Elijah ordered. Cassian turned toward the hall. "No one enters. No one leaves this level. Double the inner guard. Find Jovia." My head snapped up. "No." Cassian looked at me. I stood halfway, then almost fell when the bond lurched. "You don't get to drag her in here and make this about court punishment. Not right now." "She revealed state knowledge to you." "She told me the truth everyone else was too cowardly to say." Cassian's face hardened. Morella knelt beside Elijah before he could respond. She opened her case and pulled out instruments I did not recognize. Thin silver blades, glass vials, black thread, a bowl carved from bone. "How bad?" I asked. She did not answer. "Morella." Her eyes met mine, and that was answer enough. Worse than bad. Worse than she had prepared for. She touched the crack beneath Elijah's collarbone. He sucked in a breath through his teeth. I grabbed his hand. He tried to pull away. "Don't," I said. His fingers curled around mine. Ash transferred onto my skin. Morella's gaze dropped to our joined hands. The bond is reacting. "No shit," I said, because fear made me rude, and I had never been polite on my best day. The mark on my wrist burned red. Elijah's mark answered. Then the floor pulsed. Not shook. Pulsed. Deep beneath the estate, something beat once. The air changed. Cashin turned sharply toward the door. "What was that?" Morella went still. Another pulse rolled up through the stone. My blood mark flared so bright the room blushed crimson. Elijah's grip tightened around my wrist hard enough to hurt. Ash coated his fingers, leaving gray prints on my skin. "The morning star," Morella breathed. From somewhere far below us, beneath the court, beneath the vault, beneath every lie this house had been built to protect, the relic began to beat like a heart. Elijah looked at me. His eyes were red, dark, and full of something that made my own heart stumble. "Anna," he whispered, "whatever happens next, do not let them tell you who I was." "Don't say that." My voice barely made it past my teeth. Elijah's fingers were locked around my wrist, leaving ash-gray prints across my skin. The blood mark burned beneath his grip, pulsing in time with whatever ancient thing had awakened beneath the estate. Another beat rolled through the floor. The windows trembled. Morella's instruments rattled in their case. "Elijah," I said, because if I kept saying his name, maybe the world would remember it was not allowed to take him. "You can tell me who you were yourself." His mouth moved like he wanted to answer. Only smoke came out. Morella shoved between us with the gentleness of a woman who had no time for gentleness. "I need space. Find it around me." Her eyes snapped to mine. For once, there was no scholar's distance in them. No elegant secrets. Just fear, sharp and naked. "Anna." "No." Elijah's hand tightened weakly. "Let her work." "Then tell her to work around me." Something like pride flickered through his pain. It vanished almost immediately when a crack split farther down his chest, opening beneath his collarbone in a thin, ember-dark line. He bowed forward, teeth clenched. I grabbed his shoulder. Ash smeared beneath my palm. My stomach turned over. "No," I whispered. "No, absolutely not. We are not doing this." Outside the chamber, the estate came apart. Footsteps thundered through the hall. Voices rose, vampires, guards, servants, all of them suddenly sounding less immortal than they had yesterday. Cassian stood in the doorway like a man holding a flood back with his body. "Seal every exterior gate," he ordered. "No one enters, no one leaves. Double the guard on the vault and the lower court. If anyone approaches the Morning Star, cut them down." A guard appeared behind him, breathless. "Captain, Lord Lucian cannot be found." Of course. Of course, the prettiest red flag in the building had chosen now to turn into a magic trick. Cashin's face hardened. "Find him. He is not in his chambers, not in the court. His guards are gone." Elijah's eyes opened. Even dying, he heard that. Even breaking apart, he understood danger before the rest of us could name it. "Cashin," he rasped. "I know," Cashin said, "but none of us knew anything. That was the worst part." Morella sliced her palm open with a silver blade and let black-red blood fall into the bone bowl. It smoked when it hit the carved bottom. She spoke in a language that made the air tighten around my lungs. "What are you doing?" I asked, buying time. "Buy more." Her jaw clenched. "I'm trying." She reached for Elijah's wrist. He did not resist. That scared me more than anything else had. Morella wrapped black thread around his blood mark, then held out the blade to me. Elijah's head snapped up. "No." I took it. "Yes." "Anna." "Don't start." My hand shook, but I pressed the edge to my palm. If you have the energy to argue, use it to stay alive. The blade bit. Blood welled hot and bright. Morella caught my hand and turned it over the bowl. The moment my blood hit hers, the mixture flared red. The symbols carved along the rim lit one by one. Elijah made a sound I never wanted to hear again. Not a scream. Worse, a king swallowing one. The bond tore open between us. His pain hit me so hard I nearly fell forward. It was everywhere, under my ribs, behind my eyes, in my teeth. Heat and cold together, grinding through bone, turning breath into smoke. But underneath it, deeper, I felt him fighting. Not surrendering. Not fading peacefully like some tragic old painting. Fighting. For me. That was what destroyed me. "Elijah!" I breathed, gripping his hand as the right pulled red light from the bowl and into the cracks across his skin. "Stay. Do you hear me? Stay." His fingers twitched against mine. "I swear to God, if you die after making me deal with your entire dramatic vampire family, I will be furious." His mouth curved. Barely. Almost a smile. Then the red light failed. The bowl split in half. Morella stumbled back as the blood inside turned to ash before it hit the floor. "No," she whispered. I looked at her. "Try again. There is nothing to hold it to. Try again. Anna, try again." The room went silent. Not because I was powerful. Because I was desperate, and everyone there had the decency to be afraid of looking directly at it. A movement near the hall caught my eye. Jovia stood beyond Cashin's shoulder, half hidden in the blue-shadowed corridor. No cruel smile now. No elegant blade of a mouth. She looked at Elijah on the floor, at the ash gathering around his knees, and horror stripped her beautiful face bare. "I did not," she began. My laugh came out wrong. "You didn't what? Mean for the truth to be true?" She flinched. "Good. I did not have room for mercy. Not for her. Not for anyone." Cassian moved to block her from the doorway, but Elijah's gaze found her for one brief, terrible second. Jovia lowered her head. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked small. Then Elijah's hand slipped in mine. "No!" I grabbed him with both hands. "Look at me." His eyes returned to mine. The ruthless vampire king was gone. The monster was gone. Even the arrogant bastard who had once stared at me like I was a trespassing inconvenience with a pulse was gone. There was only Elijah. The man I had not meant to love. The man who had made me feel alive in the middle of a life I had been surviving out of spite. "I am sorry," he said. My throat closed. "Stop apologizing and survive." "I am trying." I felt it. God help me, I felt it. Every fragile pull against the ashing. Every refusal. Every piece of him clawing to remain. The bond burned inside me like a second heart, beating too fast, too hard, as if my body thought it could make up for what his was losing. Morella tried another rite, then another, blood, thread, old words, smoke, bone. Nothing held. The cracks widened along Elijah's throat. Ash slipped from beneath his skin in soft gray streams, gathering in the folds of my robe, under my nails, across the floor between my knees. I started praying. Not beautifully, not like someone raised on faith, more like threats thrown upward in case anything old and hungry was listening. Take me instead. Take the court. Take the damn mansion. Take every diamond in the vault. Just not him. Not him too. Elijah's gaze shifted suddenly past me. His body went still. Elijah? He was listening to something none of us could hear. The bond tightened. Cold swept through it, clean and foreign. "What is it?" I asked. His grip found my wrist again with the last of his strength. His fingers were barely fingers now. Ash trailed from them with every movement. "Someone is coming," he said. Cashin turned sharply. "Who?" Elijah ignored him. His eyes stayed on mine, fierce with urgency. "Don't trust the man who comes looking for you." My heart kicked hard. What man? His breath caught. Elijah, what man? He tried to speak. The sound broke apart. No. I leaned closer, shaking him like that could force the answer back into him. "No, you do not get to be cryptic right now. That is Lucian's job, and apparently he's busy being suspicious somewhere." Elijah almost smiled again. Then his face changed. Pain vanished. Not because it was gone, because he had gone beyond it. The bond snapped tight inside me. "Elijah?" His thumb moved once across my wrist, ash rough against my skin. Then his hand began to crumble. I screamed. I heard myself, but it sounded far away, like someone else had found my grief and was using it badly. Ash slipped through my fingers. His arm collapsed into gray dust against my lap. The cracks across his chest flared one final time, ember dark and beautiful and horrible. His eyes stayed on mine until the last possible second. Then Elijah Draven fell apart in my arms. No explosion, no grand, merciful flash. Just ash, soft, silent, impossible. The bond went white hot, pulled so tight I thought it would tear me open. But it did not break. I knelt there, covered in him. My husband, my enemy, my monster, the man I loved. The court had gone utterly still. Even the rain seemed to stop against the windows. No one spoke. No one moved. Cashin dropped to one knee like his body had forgotten how to stand. Marilla covered her mouth with one blood-stained hand. At the doorway, Jovia made a sound so small it almost wasn't one. I could not look at any of them. I stared down at the ash coating my hands, my robe, my skin. "Elijah," I whispered. Nothing answered. Then my blood mark burned red. Not fading, not dying, burning. A pulse moved through me, deep and violent, as if something inside my veins had clenched around his name. Far below the estate, the morning star beat again. Once, twice, alive. I looked down at the ash in my hands. Elijah was gone. But the bond was not. And something inside the ash whispered my name.
I gave you a home inside my chest. Now every breath feels like theft. You carved your name into my veins, then walked away like it meant nothing. Tell me why I still reach for you. Tell me, like a fool touching fire, even knowing it burns me through. Come back, or take this heart with you, please. 'Cause I don't know how to live without your shadow. You left your ghost in everything I do, and I'm still loving you when I shouldn't. I try to hate you, God, I tried, but your memory won't let me lie. Even silence screams your name. Even healing feels like pain. So come back or set me free. Don't leave me half for what I used to be. You're still inside me, don't you see? And I don't know how to unlove